Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 5th, 2025 meeting of the Northampton City Council. I'm Alex Jarrett. I'm City Council President. I'll be presiding along with Vice President Rachel Maori, who will be arriving shortly. This meeting and all participating in person and on Zoom will be audio and video recorded. You can also watch on Comcast Channel 15 or by streaming on Northampton Open Media's YouTube channel. I now call the City Council to order. Could you take the roll?
Sure. Councillor Dobbs.
Here.
Councillor Elkins.
Here.
Councillor Jarrett.
Here.
Councillor Clemmer.
Here.
Councillor Labarge. Here. Councillor Maori, not present yet. We're on Zoom, but expected. Okay, Councillor Moulton.
Here.
Councillor Perry.
Here.
And Councillor Rothenberg.
Here.
Council President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight's highlights include the second reading on the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget, financial orders including a gift for art on the railroad bridge downtown, an increase in the property tax exemption for veterans, and a 5-year contract for phone services, and a resolution in support of an act establishing Medicare for all in Massachusetts. Next is public comment. If you wish to make a public comment, you can sign up on the sheet at the podium. And if you're on Zoom, you'll use the raise hand feature. If you're having trouble raising your virtual hand, you can turn on your video and physically raise your hand. If you want to submit a written public comment, please email it to citycouncil@northamptonma.gov. It will be sent to all councilors and will be part of the public record. I'm going to alternate between people in the room and people on Zoom. Before you begin, please state your name and your city or town. To ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to speak, the council limits comments to a maximum of 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, I will ask you to please finish your sentence. According to council rules, we do not respond during public comment. It is your time to speak. And our rules also state councilors and members of the public shall conduct themselves with civility and respect at all times. And finally, you can speak on any topic. It doesn't need to be an item on the agenda, and all comments are to be directed to the council. I'm going to start in the room with Patty Healy. And do you have the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Patty Healy. I'm from Northampton, Ward 6. And I can come before you to support ask you to support the resolution, an act establishing Medicare for all in Massachusetts. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm also a member of MassCare, the campaign for single payer in Massachusetts, which was established about 25 to 30 years ago. And the primary sponsors of this organization were the 110 members of the Massachusetts Teachers Association and the 25,000 members of Massachusetts Nurses Association, along with Physicians for a National Health Plan. And that organization has been in the forefront of educating, politicizing, working with legislators on moving this issue forward. And I know that this is the second reading, and I heard from John Weissman, the chair of MassCare, last month. But I just wanted to point out that the teachers are a significant number of Massachusetts residents who are municipal workers who understand the need for the significant savings if the legislature should pass legislation for a single payer system. And nurses, of course, work in the system. In recent weeks, the Fitchburg mayor spoke out in favor of the bill that's before the legislature, and she noted that her city was 3 months, only had 3 months of actual money in the bank to support the rest of their budget, because their actual healthcare spending had increased by 15% this year, which was a significant increase. The Newton City Council just held a public forum sponsored by their city council and mayor. They have yet to vote, but it looks like very promising. Pittsfield Board of Health brought forward a resolution, which was also passed by their city.
Patty, that's time.
You could just finish your sentence.
This resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be on Zoom, Cullen. Your name and city or town, please.
I am Colin Shipman, family physician from Greenfield, Massachusetts. I have worked with Dr. Berkowitz for the last 5 years in the Massachusetts Medical Society, the Mass Care Organization, and Physicians for National Health Program on Medicare for All initiatives. I have found her to be a tireless worker, highly informed, and a great advocate for an important resolution in this case. I fully support her excellent resolution. I think that it speaks for itself. It will benefit many, including the businesses of the city of Northampton and the county of Hampshire County. I hope that you will pass this important resolution. I thank you.
Thank you. Back in the room, LJ Bell.
Yes, hello. Thank you.
Your name and city or town, please.
LJ Bell, Northampton, Massachusetts. I was here at City Council on May 1st, 2025. I attended the council with other members opposed to L. Harris, a perpetrator of mass killing, whose bomb-making presence in Northampton you continue to support. I'm sorry, I had to just realized it was 2 minutes. In September 23, Mayor Shada, you signed a proclamation declaring a nuclear ban day. Does a one-day ban rescind the nuclear weapons ban signed by then Mayor Narkowitz in 2018? I need to remind you that L. Harris is involved in optics or whatever the technology is for nuclear weapons. Countless residents and opponents of L. Harris, this is back on May 1st, stood to voice their comments, demands, tears, and possible solutions to the insanity, the sheer barbarity raining down on the people of Gaza. As mayor of Northampton, you have staked your share in the atrocity. Silence means complicity. During the meeting, you barely looked up from your laptop. But it was when I approached you, the mayor, at the end of the meeting, I stood in front
Hi, can you hear me? I cannot, uh, Alex, are you able to hear me? Okay, I can't hear you, and I'm sorry about my weird background. Hold on a second, let me just, so I can't hear any of you, but I'm just gonna,
Okay, Anat, can you hear us now?
I can you hear?
Okay, great.
Oh, great, and I see myself twice, but I guess that's okay. So my name is Anat Weisenfreund. I live in Northampton. I'm also the current school committee member for Ward 2. And I have a very short thing that I'd like to say to you. Good evening, counselors. Earlier this spring, the Northampton School Committee overwhelmingly approved the passage of the strong budget. The strong budget is the only budget that was presented by the superintendent that, according to her, would allow the city to keep students safe and to meet our strategic goals. It is rather remarkable and puzzling that a wealthy city like ours and the very creative and smart people in our government cannot find a way to ensure that all children in the city have their educational needs met, and that we cannot figure out how to properly fund our public schools. What does this say about us? I'd like us to really think about it, and I'd like you to vote your conscience. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in the room is Claudia Lefko.
Claudia Lefko, Northampton. I invite you to close your eyes and imagine that all of us who have gathered here tonight, there are not that many, but those people on Zoom as well, have come to thank you for fully funding our schools, for not only listening to us, but for acting on our behalf and in the best interests of the people who live, work, and visit here. Imagine we've come to thank you for opening up the conversation about Picture Main Street. Imagine the people came to thank you for saving the cherry trees and tell you how beautiful they were again this year. Imagine they came to thank you for opening every meeting with a nod to the death in Gaza. I am forever puzzled, the word she just used, and frustrated by the top-down management style of the city. Why you, our elected government, don't want to take advantage of our energy, goodwill, and lived experience. Why we find ourselves spending our time and our money fighting with you rather than in collaboration. There's an evolving situation on Montview Avenue involving neighborhood's vision of a better street and sidewalk. It's called a woonerf. It's a Danish word. The police have twice been to my house, once to warn me that painting on the crumbling street is vandalism. They came again a few weeks later to ask me to stop pulling up loose asphalt along my chain link fence and making piles of it on the grass. They were so concerned about this that they sent the head of the DPW, a crew, trucks and front loaders to my house, to Montview, to cordon off the sidewalk with 2 large green concrete blocks and 4 or 5 bright there's horses with the orange and white stripes on them. Just a block away a few years ago, a blind woman fell twice in my neighborhood. Nobody came. And just last fall, another woman fell on the crumbling sidewalk on the corner of Holyoke and William Street. No one came. No trucks came. No one came to repair it. Nothing happened. I'm asking you to please support this effort to let the neighborhood decide. Don't send the DPW until the neighborhood has spoken on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in the room is Shelley Berkowitz.
Good evening, Shelley Berkowitz, Ward 1, Northampton. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just a few comments as the author of this resolution that's on the agenda later tonight in support of passing Medicare for All Bill 860-1405 in the legislature. First, on May 21st City Council meeting, when this resolution was first presented, I was really honored to hear the thoughtful and unanimously supporting comments made by each member of the City Council in support of passing this resolution. And I'm especially grateful to all four co-sponsors, Councilors Dubs, Maori, Moulton, and Rothenberg. A few recent events to add on. Governor Healy just allocated $240 million added dollars of our taxpayer money to bail out GIC. That's the health insurance company that covers 466,000 of our Massachusetts state public employees due to their shortfall, quote, due to, quote, increased costs. Remember, there's about 30% ballpark that goes for administration and profit in private insurance companies. If this money was instead placed in the Massachusetts Trust Fund, it would ensure the financial stability to enact Medicare for All in Massachusetts and staunch the continued financial bleed.
Wow.
Next, if the Republican budget actually gets enacted, it means for us in Massachusetts, 250,000 people will lose their health care, and Massachusetts will lose $1.75 billion in Medicaid funding. This is according to Governor Healy, to give corporations and billionaires huge tax breaks. How will the Massachusetts political leadership react? The only logical solution now is to cover everyone with Medicare for All. Finally, on Tuesday, our Cooley Dickinson nurses, which are part of Mass General Brigham, rallied against MGB's plan to partially defund nurses' health coverage, despite them getting lower pay than the community and being understaffed. I appreciated Councilor Dub's comments. They're listed as a nonprofit. I'm finishing my sentence. They have $20 billion in revenue. The CEO earns $6 million. The stability of our local community hospital is at stake now. So thank you. And as the author of the resolution, I'll make myself available on Zoom tonight to the council if you have questions for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think someone, see if anyone else has signed up. Oh, there was. Would anyone else like to speak in the room? Come on up.
Hi, Meg Robbins, Ward 4. And I will start by saying it seems to me a no-brainer to vote for Medicare for All, and I know you'll do it. I'm still chasing down Medicare payments, and I know I can get some answers. Maybe it would be part of your conversation later that I did ask this question, I think, last night, but I went to the general fund, what's it called? General fund revenue. And all I see on it is that there's Medicaid payments from the federal government that come to the school system, school district. And I didn't see anything that comes to other departments. So I don't know if different departments do get Medicaid reimbursements. It's potentially that they do. Director Nardi told us that all of that goes into the general fund, but I'm still confused that on Chief Pilas's thing, it was revenue. So it was ambulance revenue and there was Medicaid reimbursement revenue. And I'm really confused about how that comes back into those different departments. And there's another part to it in terms of, I think the city used to pay for the preparation for Medicaid billing. And then when it started for schools, when it started to come into the school department for the special education fund, the school district now pays for Medicaid billing, which is around $15,000 a year. So even if all of the Medicaid reimbursements for any other departments go into the general fund, I'd be curious to know where the departments define on their line items that they pay for the preparation for the Medicaid billing. We're talking about a substantial amount of money for the schools. So it'd be really good to get some clear answers on that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Was there someone else back there? Come on up.
Hello, Martha Ebner, Northampton. I strongly urge the City Council to approve the fiscal year 26 budget tonight to allow the school committee to begin the work of finalizing line item budgets. If the vote is delayed, the work of the school committee is delayed. This reduces the amount of time the superintendent and the schools have to make the best decision for Northampton students this coming year. So again, I urge you to approve the budget tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Laura. Laura, your name and city or town, please.
Unmute.
Welcome.
Hi, sorry about that. My name is Laura Ernie. I am in Florence. And sorry, let me just grab I am a parent of a student at Leeds. And I have two things that I just wanted to bring up. The first was the garden program, and I know that it's been cut from the budget. I have emailed a few people on council, and I really appreciate all the responses I've gotten. My concern is that some of the suggestions that garden program in the 4 elementary schools, it might be funded by an NEF grant, and it seems like that will not be a permanent funding source, and it doesn't have enough money. It was due in March, so we'll miss next year, but then it doesn't have enough money to actually cover that program for all 4 schools. And, you know, it's a beloved program. It's really well integrated into the school Freshhampton program. And my son, who's a kindergartner, loves it. He's gotten a lot out of it. So I just want to urge you guys to reconsider not cutting it from the budget and allowing the garden program through School Sprouts to continue. The second thing that I wanted to bring up was that I'm kind of new to the school system, and I learned recently that I know this is not unusual across the country, but that the teachers at the Leeds school are paying a lot of their personal money for classroom items, particularly things that are required by IEP. And I just think that this is not good. I don't want my teachers to be paying a lot out of their personal budgets for classroom items, especially basic supplies. But I just keep hearing that, you know, that teachers are doing this. So I think that there is a problem
That was
where
time, if you could just finish your sentence.
Sure. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Come on up, Luke.
Hi, Luke Rotello, Ward 5. I actually wasn't planning to speak tonight. I think it's pretty clear how this vote is going to play out. For the worse. But I was kind of compelled to come up here as a result of a comment made earlier about the work of the school committee, which I would just like to note has been actively and intentionally disregarded in the course of this budget process. And it strikes me as remarkably hypocritical when many of the staunchest advocates for austerity in our city have also been the most reticent to actually put themselves up to run for school committee seats themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I see Benjamin? Come on up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Benjamin Spencer. I'm a resident of the city of Northampton. Not only am I a resident, I am also a candidate. I'm running for public office. I'm running for one of the 2 councilor at large seats. On Monday, the guest column I wrote about my candidacy ran in the Gazette. In it, I tried to describe my experience, my priorities, and my philosophy as clearly as possible. I hope you had a chance to read it. If not, I hope you will. Also on Monday, I held my campaign kickoff event. Many people volunteered at the event to help make it go smoothly. I want to thank everyone who attended, volunteered, performed, spoke, and sang. As many of you know, I have spent the last few years attending city meetings and participating in civic life in a variety of ways. A lot of people dedicate a lot of time and energy to keep the city running, and I thank them for it. I'm impressed by the level of professionalism, thoughtfulness, and integrity that is on display at all these meetings. Mostly recently, I attended the 2 finance committee meetings regarding the budget for fiscal year 2026. At the start of last night's meeting, I was struck by the words Councilor Maori said. At the end of the meeting, I asked her if I could hear them again so I could write them down. Quote, "We are all in community together, and democracy means nothing without public engagement." How true. And when I got home last night after the meeting, I checked out the comments on the Gazette Facebook post where they shared my column. Someone I don't know and who doesn't know me had written about me, presumably, quote, "Northampton at its worst." Whatever. That's fine. Under that comment was a reply from the Ward 3 City Councilor Quaverly Rothenberg. It was as follows. Agree. Ben is someone who is publicly preaching just trust the mayor so he can privately ensure his personal pet projects like bike lanes and Picture Main Street sail through. He is doing it at the expense of kids and low to moderate income members of our community.
That was time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is on Zoom is Daniel. Your name and city or town, please.
Yeah, can you guys see me?
Yes.
Hello. Hey, Dan Brindell, Ward 3, Northampton. This week, Councilor Labarge, you posted a comment on Facebook in which you were, I think I appreciate, very critical of the size of the Phillips Place project that's about to be built, that the planning department red stamped very quickly and easily after a single hearing this past week. I appreciate where your heart is at, Councilor, as well as many of the other ones. That being said, your votes are not where they need to be. You voted for the form-based code. To watch the planning board meeting, the way that it works now is Director Mish sits there and says, if this fulfills the form-based code, then it's good for the city because the city says that everything in the form-based code is good for the city. And so we have this insane scale. We have no parking, which means that the city has to take on the parking. Councilor Moulton, you also voted for this. You have said publicly and privately that you wonder why Director Mish didn't upzone the entire parcel in 2012. You could have asked her that when you voted for this. You could have asked her that over the last couple of months. I don't believe that you have. Councilor Maori, I wonder if you noticed last week or at the last meeting when you asked President Jarrett a question about the timing of moving our ordinance, what he answered to you contradicted what he had said to you weeks earlier when you voted down moving Councilor Rothenberg's ordinance. By the way, let me just say about Councilor Rothenberg, she has been a godsend. While the councilors at large have failed to even call me back on many of these issues, Rothenberg on day one was organizing meetings for the people of this community about this project to try to empower us as much as possible. We don't have power in this city, but she tried to give it to us. Anybody running against her right now is either part of the problem or doesn't understand the problems that this city faces. President Jarrett, within 14 days means that day one is within the first day. You received my ordinance on the 6th. You can claim it as the 7th.
That was
within
time.
14 days would end
sentence.
on the 20th, Mr. President. The city solicitor is misleading you. I would also ask Councilor Elkins, we have talked about this publicly and privately.
You will
I would
have
ask that you
stop.
recuse yourself
Thank-
from anything
thank
that
you,
would
Daniel.
involve this ordinance on the
Daniel,
legislative
I'm sorry,
committee.
but that is time.
You have said
If
to
you
me
could
on
please
multiple
stop.
occasions that you are unable
Okay,
to
I'm sorry. I'm
be
going to have
unbiased
to
or even
mute
to
you.
move
I
on
hate to
this
do that,
stuff.
but if you
You
won't
called yourself
listen.
a plan.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, thanks everyone. We will move on to announcements from councilors and the mayor. Councilor Dubs.
Sure. I just would like to remind everybody that our next ordinance review committee meeting is next Wednesday, June 11th at 6 p.m. over Zoom. And right now we're welcoming members of the public and anybody in the city that has ideas about reviews, ordinances that need to be reviewed, suggestions that you might have. Feel free to come to our meeting and give public comment, and hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Elkins.
Yes, I just want to give a shout out to the Northampton High School girls lacrosse team who made a run to the playoffs. They ended their run in the, I believe it was the round of 16 last night with a loss to Hingham, which is worth noting, ranked 5 in the state. Very strong likelihood they might win the whole thing. But they had a tremendous season, 19 wins, 3 losses. Their head coach is Usman Power Green, who is also, as it happens, chair of the Reparations Study Commission and a tremendous member of this community. So way to go, girls. It's also worth noting the foreign exchange student we hosted last year who had such a wonderful experience in our city and in our schools also played on the lacrosse team. They didn't have quite the run last year that they did this year, but really proud of those kids, and congratulations to all of them.
Thank you. Councilor Rothenberg.
That is a good segue. I would like to announce that there's a very important Reparations Committee meeting on Tuesday, this Tuesday. There's a flyer that you can find on my Facebook page and Instagram, or you could email me if you'd like a copy, or text me. My number's on the city website. I'm just going to read it into the record. It says, "Please save the Reparations Commission. At 5 p.m. sharp, voice your support to extend the work for a year. Reparations is more than just an apology. Wait to submit this report." And so what that is about the work of this commission and a draft report that's being considered for final approval on Tuesday. So it's a really consequential meeting. And what's sort of up for discussion includes this concept of whether we should really be talking about things like funding and eligibility for reparations before we submit this report, so we have a really strong document. And there's a nice article in the Shoestring today, published today, where Ward 3 resident and candidate for school committee, Renika, speaks about how in other communities this work takes longer than where we are in the process right now. So I am supporting extending this work, and I hope that others who are will come and voice their support as well on Tuesday at 5 o'clock on Zoom and in City Hall in the hearing room on the second floor. Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder that our meeting that would have been scheduled on Thursday, June 19th has been rescheduled to Wednesday, June 18th to avoid the Juneteenth holiday. Any other announcements? Councilor Perry.
Yeah, I don't think I did this last time, but Salsa in the Plaza has started every Sunday. McCoy Jameson is hosting it, so get out there, get your dance moves on, and enjoy yourselves. That's it.
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, I'm just announcing the next Finance Committee meeting will be a hybrid here in Chambers and on Zoom. June 16th, Monday, June 16th, 6:30, which is not our usual time. So 6:30, we're going to be going over a slew of CPA grants funding. So hope you can join us.
Councilor Clemmer.
Thank you. Thanks for reminding me, Councilor Maori. June 16th, because of the early start for the Finance Committee meeting, Community Resources is going to start at 5 o'clock instead of 5:30. And we're excited to have the head of the DNA come and speak. I'm drawing a blank on her name.
Andrea Munson.
Thank you very much. Andrea Munson, we're excited to have her tell us what's going on in downtown and what she's been up to since she started on the job this year or last year.
Thanks. Anything else? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'm going to read the items on the consent agenda and then ask if there are any removals. The minutes of May 1st, 2025. 25.250B, appointment to planning board. The city services delivered a positive recommendation today on Cameron Roach, filling the position of Melissa Fowler. 25.259, in order to appropriate $294,508 from free cash to Northampton Public Schools Special Education Stabilization Fund. 25.269, an application for supervised display of fireworks, the Northampton Family Fourth Committee. By the way, the date of the display is June 21st at 6:30 p.m. at Wood Park. The rain date is the 22nd. 25.270, applications for 2 taxi cab licenses for Jeffrey Miller of Cosmic Cab Company. 25.277, appointments to various committees for referral to city services. To the Arts Council, Kay Carroll, a reappointment. To the Community Preservation Committee, Brian Adams, a reappointment, and Devin Bruce, also a reappointment. In fact, these are all reappointments. To the Conservation Commission, C. Mason Marone and Paul Foster Moore. To the Disability Commission, Amy Sugahara. To the Board of Health, Janet Grant. To the Housing Partnership, Gordon Shaw. To the Parks and Recreation Commission, Aaron Busuvis. To the Planning Board, Chris Tate and Jana White. To the Trust Fund Committee, Jake Dissinger. Are there any removals from the consent agenda? Councilor Rothenberg.
Items items B and C, not A.
Any other removals? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with those items removed.
To approve.
Second.
Okay, there's no discussion on the consent agenda. The one financial order has been removed. Yes. Yes. So we can do a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we will take up first 25.250B, appointment to Planning Board of Cameron Roach. Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes, I feel that the planning board appointments need more extensive discussion, and I don't think that I will support this, but I also won't be a no vote. I will just be abstaining. I think we have a lot of work to do with the planning board.
Is there a motion to approve?
Yes, I move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by Councilor Elkins to approve 25.250B. Further discussion?
Yes,
Moulton.
as Chair of City Services, I will remind the council that this appointment was referred originally to the council or by the Council of City Services on May 1st. We have had then 36 days for any discussion that any individual councilor wished to have. On May 12th, we discussed going through our normal process of having one member of the committee interview Mr. Roach because he lives in Ward 1, and typically if an applicant lives in a ward of one of the counselors on city services, that counselor does the interview. I asked if anybody else was interested in planning board appointments and wanted to interview Mr. Roach, and no one responded. So I did the interview and I reported on it at a meeting at 5:30 earlier this evening that Councilor Rothenberg did not attend. There was opportunity for discussion. And I feel that Mr. Roach is highly qualified to serve on the planning board for reasons that I won't repeat here because I made them at 5:30.
Direct response?
Thanks. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, Councilor Elkins. Okay.
I'm not going to respond to the part about how much discussion we had or didn't have. You and I often disagree about whether it's the right time or the wrong time or there's been enough time. But I will respond to your comment about my absence to let everyone know it was deeply important and meaningful to be with the Bridge Street School community today at that time for our school picnic. And it was wonderful.
Is there any further discussion? Councilor Labarge.
I do have to say at our city service meeting at 5:30, our Councilor Moulton did an excellent job on what this applicant was all about. Very, very thorough. And I have to agree. I think he would be an excellent, excellent candidate for the planning board myself. And I voted on it.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further comment, all those in favor of 25.250B say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, that passes with 8 yes votes and 1 abstention. Next is 25.259, in order to appropriate $294,508 from free cash to Northampton Public Schools Special Education Stabilization Fund. This was referred to the consent agenda on May 21st. Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes, I just maintain my standing objection to the way this entire thing is set up. I don't think it's in accordance with the statute. And although many constituents have asked me to get into the weeds on this tonight, I have let them know that I'm just going to stand on the record, and we can revisit this again in the future on its own meeting. We have a lot of business to do tonight, so it's just going to be a no vote with no further commentary from me.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made by Councilor Clemmer and seconded by Councilor Elkins. Further discussion? Councilor Elkins.
I would just like to note that suggestions that our spending and procedures, especially where it is governed by state statutes and overseen by the Department of Revenue and Department of Division of Local Services, to suggest that we are unlawful, that we are not comporting with state law, is a serious allegation. That ought to be supported with, it shouldn't just be a allegation. So if you wish to bring something forward, I do encourage you to actually do that and bring support for your position and evidence of what you mean. It is not the case that we are unlawfully spending money and that our setup is illegal or doesn't comport with state law in any way. And I do whatever direct response you would like. However, be mindful that you're not going to be responding to what I just said because you can't.
Indirect response.
Would anyone else like to speak before we go back to Councilor Rothenberg? Councilor?
Yeah. Hi. So yeah, I supported this, and I think we had kind of been in the ether or in the works for years as an idea, and I don't think we're doing anything unlawful, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea, but I do have concerns about if it's actually being operationalized in a way that is serving the school budget, because it sounds like there's planned positions, and I will support transferring money out of it. But I do have concerns about, are we just adding bureaucracy are we adding more steps to get to money that should be included in the operating budget of the schools? If these are planned positions and not urgent, urgent expenses. So. But I will support the transfer, but since we are talking kind of philosophically about the fund, those are my concerns with the fund.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay. You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Your name wasn't, a name wasn't mentioned, so technically it wasn't a direct response, but go ahead.
I will prepare a written memo for City Council about the issues with this, and I will state for the record right now that the concerns I have are shared by DOR DLS employee Kenneth Woodland, who before he was with DOR DLS was a city councilor in Watertown who was instrumental in creating this statute. And in many conversations with him, it is clear that the way we have set it up and the extra steps we have put on it and caps we have put on it and other details I'll get into in the memo are not in accordance with the spirit of this statute. I don't think the way that we're using it makes logical sense. And I look forward to discussing this further in a future meeting, since this seems to be intended to be a permanent fixture in the way that we finance the city. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, roll call please on approval of 25.259.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Clemmer,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
And Counselor Rothenberg.
No.
That passes with 8 yes votes and 1 no. Okay, with the council's permission, I would like to move ahead to the budget orders on second reading. Okay with everyone?
Well, I wonder if it would make more sense to allow the people who are here for the resolution to have that be heard first.
I would be open to that as well, and then go to the budget orders on second reading. Is there any objection to that? Okay, we will do the resolution on second reading. 20, so that's 25.252, a resolution in support of an act establishing Medicare for all in Massachusetts. And it was introduced and discussed on May 21st. Which of the would the sponsors like to speak with us?
We've got to get a clear podium. I was looking for Dr. Berkowitz, but anyways. Hi. Yeah, no, that's okay. I just was hoping you were here. Sorry.
Counselor Mayor.
Yeah, no, I don't know if if Dr. Berkowitz has anything to add, I would be okay recognizing her. Did you feel like you got to say your piece? Okay, good. Yeah. I mean, do we have to vote on a recognition?
So normally we don't do recognition during the meeting. So,
all right.
Usually the sponsors, however, can convey anything that you would like conveyed.
That's fine. All right. So, yeah, I think we went over, a lot of last meeting, but just to say, I support this wholeheartedly. If this actually happened, our school budget woes would probably go away. I mean, it's that much money that we are spending on our healthcare here. And it's such an inefficient system with 31% of every healthcare dollar going to CEO salaries and corporate profits and lobbying. Medicare for all would cover 60 million people with 3% overhead. Let's see, imagine the negotiating power of a single payer to lower prescription drug prices. And it will improve health, because 41% of Mass families struggle to pay for healthcare costs. 36% of our state budget goes to pay for healthcare. And we are already kind of rationing care. So this would be a great improvement. In Northampton, this would be probably estimate that will be like $15 million. Excuse me. This year we will spend $15 million, correct? A 10% increase in our healthcare coverage. So we would say Northampton would save around at least $6.6 million. So to me, this is 100% something to support at the state level and every level.
Councilor Mole?
The only point I will underscore is to repeat something that Shelley said, and that's that the federal political climate now makes this more imperative than ever. 250,000 people in Massachusetts losing their health care under the Republican bill. It speaks for itself.
Thank you. Councilor Doves.
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Councilor Moulton and Councilor Maori have said, and I want to thank Shelley Berkowitz for inviting me to be a part of this resolution. And I think it would be amazing if this could be an actual reality in our state. I think it would really be incredible. So wholeheartedly support this, and thanks everybody.
Would you like to speak?
Sure. So last time I gave some thanks. I could not remember the name last time of the former president of the Postal Carriers Union, and that was John Weissman, whose name was mentioned earlier as the chair. We're very grateful to him. Grateful to Dr. Shipman for coming out tonight. Very grateful to Patty Healy. very grateful to the MTA, the Nurses Association. Hard to believe this has been a 30-year struggle. Hoping that getting 351 municipalities to sign on will help to end this struggle. And I mostly want to give a very deep thanks to Dr. Shelley Berkowitz. And just to say a few words about her, in addition to being a doctor at the VA hospital, in addition to being a longtime member of our community, a wonderful humanitarian, an ardent supporter of our schools, and a wonderful, wonderful musician, you are, of course, also the author of this. And we thank you so much because not so many of us here take the time not only to wrestle with city councils, but you also wrestle with the state legislature. And that's a huge, huge undertaking. You are very fierce in your kindness and courage. And I thank you. And we thank you.
Thank you. Other counselors? Okay, yeah, I spoke about it last time, and my thoughts still stand. I'm very grateful for everyone for putting this forward. I'm excited to vote for it. All right, let's do a voice vote. All in favor?
Motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Moulton and seconded by Counselor Dubs. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the matter passes unanimously. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, now we're moving back up to financial orders on second reading. So this is 25.253 in order to approve the fiscal year 2026 general fund budget. It was referred to finance, and then finance committee gave a positive recommendation with 3 votes yes and 1 vote no yesterday. And now it is before us on second reading. And I have a conflict of interest as a member of the Pedal People Cooperative, which has a pre-existing contract from before I was elected with Central Services Parking Maintenance. So Council Vice President Maori will now preside and has agreed to accommodate this conflict by dividing the motion. I'll return at that point to participate in a discussion about everything else in the general fund. And I also have a financial interest greater than the average resident in the decisions that are made regarding the Locust Street Transfer Center, which is part of the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. So I'll be recusing myself for that item as well. So Vice President Maori.
See you later. Okay, so we need a motion to put the adoption of the FY 2026 general fund budget on the floor for discussion. This is not a motion to approve yet. It's the vote. No vote is needed. This is just to put it on the floor. So I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to put this on the floor.
Second. Okay. Motion made by Councilor Plummer, second by Councilor Elkins. Okay. So now we need a motion to divide the questions to separately consider the central services parking maintenance budget, which contains the Pedal People contract. And yes, am I doing this right? Yes, just shout out if I miss a step. Okay. So we need a motion to divide the question.
I'll make a motion to divide the question.
Second that.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Plummer, second by Councilor Labarge. Are we taking a vote?
Yes, we actually need to see if they actually do want to divide the questions.
Got it. Okay. So we vote on the dividing of the question.
Yes, then the two will be separated and
okay.
Councilor Jarrett can
okay
discuss.
Yeah, so a roll call
conflict.
Yeah. So then we take a voice vote. Okay, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any abstentions or noes? Okay, so they are so divided. Is he outside? Oh, hi.
Thanks.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you for accommodating my conflict of interest. We will now discuss everything but the central services parking maintenance budget with regard to the general fund. So I wanted, before we begin, I wanted to, a counselor earlier asked if we would consider postponing this vote to our next meeting. And so I looked into how that would be done. And that could happen. We could do a motion to postpone after the item is fully, the actual order is on the floor, which happens after this period of more conceptual discussion that we're having now. So that would end, and I would be recused, and then it would the order itself would be put on the floor, and then there would be a vote as to whether to postpone. But I wanted to recognize Councillor Perry, who wanted to asked if we could discuss this sort of at the beginning, so that we could frame what our discussions.
Yeah, and thank you for the time. I did reach out to you about postponing this, and I want to note that we have had some time looking at the budget. I've dove into it. I also want to acknowledge that we have had robust presentations during the finance meeting. And I want to thank every department head. I want to thank all of my fellow counselors for their questions. And a lot of information was presented in a short amount of time. But what caused me to reach out to President Jarrett was that I want to give space to all of my fellow counselors who I know process differently. I've been feeling that we are in an environment where, especially locally here, there's a lot of, I feel like we're being kind of a little divisive, and I want to bring us together and give this vote some weight. And I think that, my intention is not to drag things out or to hinder any department, but I really understand the decisions that we make affect a lot of people. So I'm hoping we can discuss whether or not we are willing to postpone that as a thing that I think will allow us all to kind of take a breath and really focus in on it.
Okay, thank you. So we could feel free to have a general discussion about postponement, but the actual time to make the decision around postponement will come later. Okay, yeah, Councilor Rothenberg.
Just to say up front, so it's probably helpful to consider and factor into that conversation. I know Councilor Dubs and I have not had any discussions about charter objections for this vote. I certainly don't plan on lodging one. I've tried them many times since I started to see if it would give us more time to reassess our choices. It doesn't seem to have that effect. I would love to have a mutually agreed upon continuance, and I would honor a commitment not to lodge a charter objection at any point in that process. So you could factor that into your timeline.
Thank you. I actually got an opinion from the city solicitor that a postponement would that the charter objection has to be lodged at the first time that an order or a measure comes before the council. So if the order comes, that's the time. The first time would be tonight for approval. And then if we postpone it, then that is the second time. So a charter objection could not be lodged at on June 18th. I hope that helps folks in thinking about a postponement. Okay. Yeah, Councilor Mayor.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, I really appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I would certainly support that.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes, and I appreciate the commitment to not charter object. And unlike last year, where I think our delays had meaningful impact on the work of the school committee and caused disruptions through the summer, I I think in this circumstance, it appears if we're really just committed to 2 weeks, go into the next regularly scheduled meeting, it certainly seems reasonable. I would not be in favor of a delay if I'm hearing from departments that this would cause significant costs to taxpayers or delays in projects and planning. But so if we, assuming we don't hear that tonight, in response to that, I'm certainly willing to allow this time. And I will, in as much as charter objections have been used in the past, the difficulty with them is that the case, if more time was needed or requested, the case was never made to us as a body to give us an opportunity to vote in times when it's been used. So this seems appropriate, and the chips may fall where they may. If the body doesn't want to delay and want to go forward tonight, then that's how the vote about how the vote rolls. So thank you, Councilor Perry, for bringing this forward in this manner to allow us the opportunity to consider whether or not more time would be beneficial.
Councilor Labarge, and then Councilor Moulton.
Thank you, Councilor Elkins. Councilor Perry, I think it's the right way to go. I really do. We need to look at the big picture here. You do a charter objection. Who are we hurting? Not ourselves. We're hurting our teachers and our children and the city. And I feel this is the right way to go. Of all of us having that meeting and talk about things. That's the value here. The value. So I'm agreeing to this 100%. Thank you.
Councilor Moulton.
Yeah, I don't have any objection to the delay. I would like to hear from the mayor and or finance director to see if they have any concerns about a 13-day delay.
Mayor.
Oh, sorry. I don't have any concerns. Good evening, everyone, by the way. But I'm sure that Director Schutze would like to start hiring for the position for dispatch that's in the budget. There's a part-time position for building. As we know, fire is not going to start hiring till August, so that's not a concern. But there are positions that I'm sure they would love to get going on. But I don't have any concerns.
Anyone else before I go back to Councilor Labarge who hasn't spoken? Councilor Labarge?
Yes, Councilor. When would that next meeting be?
Wednesday, June 18th.
Thank you.
13 days from now.
Thank you.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes, this is a note mostly for the public because I'm sure that my fellow colleagues understand the charter. But I want to clarify when we're talking about charter objections, just for the public to explain how a single charter objection works. It delays us to our next possible special meeting, which could be 3 days from the moment the objection's lodged. So if you've ever been on jury duty and you have to reach a unanimous decision with your colleagues, if you can't, if you're the one holdout and everybody has to come back the next day to deliberate more, that's essentially what this works. How this works. It allows one counselor to postpone things by that small bit, and it extends our deliberations. So I just wanted to make that clear because it sounded sort of dramatic, though it was being characterized as sort of harming people and causing these massive delays. They're quite small.
Councilor Maori, and then Councilor Clemmer, and then Maori.
Yeah. I just, do the other councilors feel like they need another 13 days to go over this budget? And we did get it early this year. We did get presentations. We have time to discuss it tonight. If people really feel like they're going to use the time to research and talk to people and make more different decisions, then I'll support it. But, people know how they want to vote and they feel, prepared to vote tonight. And some of the department do want to start hiring, and some of the teachers, they're going to have to know what budget they're, how much money they're going to have next term. So I'm just wondering if it's going to delay that also, and if it'd be better just to vote unless somebody has any grave concerns that they aren't prepared tonight and could really use the extra 13 days.
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, I hear and we should definitely be aware of the impact of delays, but I mean, the budget season is to the end of June. I mean, it seems that we seem to need that. It happened last year. And so it's not, somehow, a miss for us to take that full time. In terms of Councillor Clemmer's questions, I don't, I'm not really sure. But I feel like, I feel like if I have a fellow colleague who does want that time or does see some value in it, that I'm willing to do that. But it's a good question.
Yeah, I understand that. It's just if people really need the time, because I mean, if you have more time, are we going to use it?
Councilor Debs.
Thanks. Yeah, I want to thank Council Perry for bringing this up, and I respect the fact that you have given us this opportunity to have a say, and if we want in the fact if we want to give this another 2 weeks or not, and so yes, I would say that I would like to take another. I think that giving us more time would be very helpful to process all of this information, and so I thank you again for doing this.
Councilor Elkins.
And I would also note that we have until the 30th, but I would note that that's to pass a budget. So, one of the considerations that I have is that if the difference between voting tonight versus some more time for all of my colleagues to consider, and that means we pass a budget on the 18th, then that may be a meaningful distinction. If we fail to pass a budget either tonight or on the 18th, then the departments will be waiting anyway, because what will happen is the mayor's budget will go into effect, but it won't be until July 1st, in which point then by, sort of operational law, it will go into effect. So that I'll be completely transparent. There are folks who've, we all vote our conscience and we all vote the way, but if it is the difference between passing a budget on the 18th and not passing a budget tonight, then, I think that would be helpful. And I don't want to, I'm always willing to give my position and persuade, and I don't want to be perceived as putting pressure on anybody else, given how they voted in the past, to say now whether or not they might, change their position or, from years past. But I think they're persuasive. I think there are good reasons to pass this budget. If it's going to fail, it doesn't matter when it fails, candidly. So.
Thanks. Yes, Councilor Mayor.
I was just going to say, so the 18th, that would be 12 days until July 1st. So it would be 12 days.
Councilor Rothenberg.
One of my main concerns that goes into consideration for whether or not to delay is just for our constituents. I think the public, just like us, had that hearing last night, and it's really not a lot of time for them to process either. And I think in the interest of fairness to our constituents, the more time that they have to talk to us, the better. I don't know that it's appropriate to sort of take a straw poll as to where we stand. But obviously for Ward 3, this budget would need a lot of work to get to a place that works for Ward 3. And my understanding from my colleagues was that, when we had the discussion about how council can negotiate and how council can use leverage, the response was that you all prefer more to use sort of persuasive, maybe private conversations to see if you can negotiate to get to where you want to go. So I would like to see you use that time, if that's how you want to work on this budget, to try to make this a better budget for Ward 3.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for contributing, and later the decision may be made to postpone. So I would ask if the Mayor Shara or her team would like to share anything especially I know we all posed a number of questions at various meetings, and want to give you an opportunity to speak to those.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we can go through some of the questions that were asked. Oops, I just lost my place. So one was about the personnel reserve. So there's $900,000 in the personnel reserve in the budget this year. So that there is a budget line every year for personnel. And it grows in years when we have contract negotiations because we have to account for those contract negotiations. So that is where the money is sort of stored at the moment. And then once those contracts are settled, then it will be dispersed into the different departments where it will be. So the reason, I think the question was, why does that 900,000 then sort of continue every year in the fiscal stability plan? And that's because it needs to go, like, we need to show that that money continues, right? That $900,000 doesn't disappear, but we also can't distribute it yet. So that's why we're showing it continuing in the plan, because it exists. So I hope that that answers that question.
That was my question. If I could follow up.
Raise your hand.
Sure.
Would you prefer to take questions at the end or address each one as they?
I think let's address each one.
Okay, Councilor Rothenberg.
So the question was sort of framed as far as why was that different in prior years where that number went down in the forecast instead of staying steady? The only thing I could infer is that you've decided it's a better practice or that was a mistake. Did you want to speak on that?
Yeah, so we have not, I have not been consistent. In 2023, that was my first year. And I was not consistent. This year, the 900,000 should be continued out. It also should have had a COLA increase because every year it will grow. So it should have been different.
Thanks. And then the other question about that was whether we expect that that figure will be settled or those negotiations will be settled before June 30th so that we can update that figure in the budget more accurately.
So no, all contracts have not been settled yet. So that would not be before June 30th. It would not happen.
But when they are settled, there will be a financial order asking us to distribute those. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, next question. Councilor Rothenberg also asked about a DLS document that's referencing estimating local receipts, and says that signed about local receipts in 90%. So this is a document that is actually a template for municipalities to do financial forecasting. And so it's called the Financial Forecast Template Instructions from DLS. And this, it was done in 2024, so recently. And so the intro to that document says, quote, "A financial forecast is an essential planning and policy-making tool that projects revenues and expenditures over a multi-year period. A well-designed forecast allows a municipality to evaluate the impact of various decisions and policy choices, identify challenges, analyze different scenarios, and budget sustainably for the future," end quote. So the section that Councilor Rothenberg is referring to is for the section about forecasting local and offset receipts. And that the intro to that says, quote, "Local receipts are locally generated revenues other than real and personal property taxes, include motor vehicle and other excises, penalties and interest, investment income fees and charges," end quote. So DLS's projection template for municipalities to use as they forecast their budgets and forecast into the future says, quote, "Local receipts generally reflect the health of the local economy and can significantly impact free cash. They also affect the municipal revenue growth factor calculation, which can trigger an increase in net school spending requirements. We recommend a generally conservative projection for all receipts with a target of no more than 90% of the previous year's actual revenue," end quote. So yes, as I said, I think multiple times in the budget document, in the budget message, and then has also said to all of you, we have pushed revenues quite high and are taking calculated risks to be able to build in the additional recurring funding from throughout FY25. and the 5.88% increase for FY26 for the Northampton Public Schools and for the fire rescue additions. So all of the major local receipts are above the 90%, with the exception of the investment income, which we only have a year and 5 months of data on. So every revenue category is over the recommendation from DLS, with the exception of the miscellaneous revenue, which includes the investment income. So overall, the total revenue that is above the 90% recommendation is $362,168. So we are definitely pushing a bit beyond what DLS instructs us to do when budget forecasting, but we've explained our need and reasons for that. We also have, Director Nardi has some visuals to just kind of go through if people would like to see that. And I just also want to note that this same document, this forecasting document from DLS states that for free cash, that quote, because there's no guarantee a community will have future free cash, it should not be projected. And that should be taken into account when forecasting. And additional forecasting guidelines for revenue assumptions include, quote, to not project one-time revenues to fund ongoing or recurring operating expenditures, end quote, and quote, comply with financial planning policies to build and maintain reserves, maintain debt levels, and fund capital improvement plans, end quote. So again, if people want to look this up, it's the financial forecast template instructions from DLS. And Director Nardi, if you wanted to share.
So, and anytime it wants to start.
What's that?
Oh, there it is.
So, yeah, as the mayor said, the words up here is just, we recommend a generally conservative projection for all receipts with a target of no more than 90%. So what I'm here going to show you is local taxes. Obviously, it said excluding real estate and personal property. So those top numbers I've excluded. Anything in yellow is actually things that we cannot project that way. And the reason is because we can't rely on it. We don't really know what will happen, especially when we're talking about the interest on taxes, taxes and litigation, interest on taxes, all those ones in the yellow. There's no way to project what actually it will be. So those are not actually projected as a 90%, or I didn't actually look at them as a 90%. All the ones in green are above the 90%. So if you look at them, this is based on the actual FY 2024 revenues. And as you see, the second column is the FY 26 budget. And the third column is the 90%. What's 90% of FY 2024? And then the difference column, if it's positive, that means I'm greater than 90%. So if you go to the bottom of total taxes, these are local taxes, excluded real estate and personal property. We are 236,000 over 90%. If we go to charges for services, again, I excluded all the parking revenue. Parking revenue is based on the cost of the parking system. Anything that's above my revenue projections go to the parking system to support that, keep it upgraded and working as a revenue source. All the green, again, is if you see a positive number and it's green, that means I'm above the 90%. And if you go to the bottom, total charges for services, we are $340,000 over in that category. If you go to licenses and permits, again, same thing. So licenses and permits, I really focus on the big heavy hitters here, which are the building inspector, plumbing inspector, wire inspector, weight measures. The other ones can vary, and it's very difficult to tell what will actually come in. It depends on what activity they have during that year. So again, if you go to the bottom, we are $37,000 over in the entire category of the 90%. And then the last category is fines and forfeits. Again, we are just $1,200 over. But again, these are parking tickets and the CMVI reimbursements, which are fines related to the RMV. And again, those are difficult to predict. And then intergovernment state cherry sheet, if you notice that's all in yellow, that is because we do not project those. Those come from the state as part of the state budget. So that's not something I actually project. And then the intergovernmental state, other state revenue varies. The city clerk miscellaneous revenue, McKinney-Vento, and foster care reimbursements, which are sent to the schools. So those come in there, and we actually send those to the schools. So those aren't revenues that we generally rely on to support the budget. And then miscellaneous revenue. This is the one that the mayor talked about. This is the only category that I'm not above, and that is because investment income is in that line. But as you can see in FY 2026, we have increased it to $2,078,000 to support the FY 26 budget. And then the last one, as you can see, it's 362,000 over total local receipts, over the 90%.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councilor Rothenberg.
My question is if we have a copy of that, we could have a copy of that.
Sure.
And the reason I'm asking is because the analysis that we've done in Word 3, even taking the interest aside, is that if we came up to the 90%, it's actually $1.7 million larger than the budget that you put forward. So I would like to just take some time, another reason to take some time and compare our analysis with that to see where we're different.
Sure.
And then see if we might want to talk about that. I did also have one procedural question about that vote, the postponement, if we could go back just as I'm processing it.
Sure.
If it requires us to agree to the two parts and then postpone.
No, we can choose not to vote on the two parts at all. We can just let those not be adopted, and then when the actual order is put on the floor, and then you all without me would be choosing whether to postpone the entire order or not.
Okay. Yeah, because the two parts would then sort of be fixed and then the postponement would.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions about this part of the answers? Councilor Maori.
I just had a Medicaid and reimbursement question.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so it had been mentioned that the schools, something like Bobby said, something like 15 grand went to prep for the for Medicaid reimbursement. Excuse me, having some. And so I'm wondering, is that like, say, for fire safety, are they spending money, on their, to prep that kind of that amount as well? Other departments like fire and rescue, and yeah, I have a follow-up question.
So Director Jones is correct. In the past, $15,000 is paid to the Lower Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to actually process the documents for the Medicaid reimbursement. The city in the past has kept that. The school has paid for that cost. Then when Director Jones got here, we had the discussion, and she said, if the city's going to keep the money, doesn't it make sense that the city pay it? I agreed with her, and we took on that cost. But now we're moving the money back to the schools because it's supporting the Special Educational Stabilization Fund. So in 2026, so in 2025 was the first year we were paying for that cost. But then we made the agreement that the money would go back to the school. So the school is going to take back that cost. Your question about how the fire department does it, they are the only other department that processes paperwork for Medicaid reimbursement. It is located in the revenue section. It's called Mass Ambulance CPE. It's a revenue line. It goes to the general fund. It does not go back to the fire department, and the fire department personnel, actually Division Chief Millen does that actual work. So he processes that work in-house.
But so when we say it goes back to the general fund, it means so all of that revenue goes into the general fund and then it's dispersed amongst the schools and all of the departments to support. It doesn't go to fire rescue.
It doesn't go back to fire rescue. Okay.
All the other budgets in the city.
And so do you know how much Medicaid revenue is in the fire rescue, their annual budget?
So it's none in their budget. So if you look at revenue, if you look on the revenue sheet,
Yeah.
if you go under intergovernment state revenue or state other,
yeah,
you look on, it's the second line down, it's called Mass Ambulance CPE. And if you look in FY 2025, I budgeted an increased amount of $355,984. What we are actually getting for FY 25 is $236,500. I'm about $119,000 short in that line. There is a trend to move people off of Medicaid and onto Medicare. This line that we have actually, our fire department has wisely been going after is a limited also pot of money. And as communities find out about how they can supplement the monies that they got through ambulance services, that they didn't get the full amount, going to this pot as more communities use it, it's limited, so there's less to go around. So, but there's two reasons. The actual reason it dropped was because there is a push to get more people on Medicare off of Medicaid. So we cannot anticipate a lot more money in that line.
Thank you.
So,
Councilor Moulton.
yeah, can I ask a follow-up just to make sure I'm understanding correctly that the only department now that receives targeted Medicaid reimbursements is Northampton Public Schools through the new stabilization fund?
Correct. And
all other Medicaid reimbursements are dispersed through general fund and could go to any expenses.
Correct. And same thing with ambulance revenue that comes in from fire rescue. So we get that revenue from their operations, but it goes into the general fund and then it's dispersed to support operations in schools and also other city departments. None of it goes directly back to fire rescue, just proportionally back to fire rescue.
Just would anyone else like to speak before we go back to Councilor Maori? Okay, Councilor Maori.
But like how many years did the Medicaid reimbursement, the school's Medicaid reimbursement money not go back to the schools?
I have no idea that when I became mayor, this was what the process was.
The entire history of our city, that money was not going to the schools.
I mean, it was going to the general fund, so in part of it was going to the schools,
but it wasn't dedicated to the schools.
I mean, no, it hadn't been. In a lot of districts, it's not the case that it's dedicated to schools. It goes to the general fund.
Thank you.
Okay, would you like to move on to the next answer?
Do you want to do licenses and permits? Yeah. Since we just talked about this. Yep, sorry. Yep, just need to find the document. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So one of the other questions was about why are licenses and permits going up, but new growth is going down. So increases in building, wiring, and electrical permits do not necessarily mean that they will impact or be counted towards new growth. The work of a permit doesn't necessarily add value to the property that the assessors count. For instance, insulation, a new roof, solar panels, none of those things are value that the assessors count towards new growth. So, and new growth is estimated by the assessors based on the expectation of what new property value that can be counted on as of July 1st of the year. This does not mean the increase in market value. There are larger, of course, new projects that are being discussed, but haven't actually started, and they aren't expected to start by July 1st, so they can't be counted. Also, just to note, new growth is based on our tax rate. So $65 million last year, counted by July 1st, was based on a tax rate of $15.19 per thousand. So $65 million brought in $987,350 of new growth. That same amount, $65 million in new growth this year,
will only bring in $905,450 because our tax rate is now lower at $13.93. So that is the reason that there is a correlation, but not always a direct correlation.
Thank you. Questions? Next answer.
Okay, so probably the biggest question was what would happen if we made cuts across the board to support the $2.7 million increase to the schools, or a $655,722 increase. So the strong versus level. And so for strongs, that would be have to be an 8% increase, an 8% decrease across the board for all departments to get to $2.7 million. And some examples of what that would mean would be, so obviously it would hit the largest budgets the most. So fire rescue, it would be, you would have to cut 13.25 positions to do an 8% decrease, which would, so we currently run 2 fire engines and 3 ambulances. A cut of that size would drop the coverage to a single fire engine and 2 ambulances, and would require more mutual aid. So of course, as you know, we are trying to increase staff at fire rescue because of call volume. This would be, that would wipe out all of the increase and then some. Police department, it would be a cut of 10 positions. Given there are 12 people to a shift, this would eliminate an entire shift. And dispatch would lose 1.2 positions, so it would lose the additional position that we have for the increased call volume, and another 0.2. Building would lose 0.6 of an inspector. Of course, we are trying to increase a part-time position because of mandated, additional and mandated inspections. So we would lose that. And that would impact inspection revenue. Of course, going back to fire rescue, that would impact ambulance revenue. Public works, that would be a cut of about 6 positions. That's almost the amount that an 8% decrease is almost the entire budget of the engineering and administration division. So that would be the equivalent of losing that division. Health department or health and human services, it would be a cut of about 1.5 positions. As you know, we're already freezing a bunch of positions. And some examples in general government, for city council, it would be 34.5% of the administrative assistant. For IT, it would be a loss of 3 positions. Central services would lose 4 custodial positions. Senior services would lose 1 position out of their 10 positions. For Forbes Library, it would be the loss of 1.4 positions. Lilly would be a loss of 1 position. So overall, it would be a loss of 51 positions in the city for that 8% decrease. Now, if you go to a 2% decrease, which is what would be needed for the 655,722, for fire rescue, it would be a loss of about 3 2/3 firefighters, which would be the loss of about an ambulance worth of coverage and revenue. And for PD, this would be a loss of about 2.4 positions, which would make it difficult to maintain minimal staffing, as we'd heard last night, would require more holdovers and increased overtime. Dispatch, it would cut the new needed position that we have in the budget by 30%. And DPW would be a loss of another 2 positions. DHHS would be a loss of, I forgot, I didn't write down there how much that would be. Do you remember?
I just said she would lose operations because it's not even.
Oh, so it would be a half position. So we'd lose some of the DCC operations. For both Lilly and Forbes, it would cut 75% of an already part-time librarian. And for all the rest of the smaller budgets, it would probably mean a cut to hours that they're open and available. So I hope that answers the question you'd asked. I also just wanted to note, which kind of goes to a question that Councilor Rothenberg had asked departments was about whether they've experienced cuts. So before I was mayor, but I was on the city council, I want to note that from FY20 to FY21, so at the start of the pandemic, which was coincided with a budget season, there were significant city staff cuts with the sudden drop in revenue that happened with the pandemic. Some of those positions have never been restored. So in total, there are about 20 city staff that were cut from 20 to 21. Just for context, in the same amount of time, Northampton Public Schools staffing increased by 40 FTEs. So schools were held harmless and actually had increases, as were most of public safety, except for the police, which had a big cut that year. And Health and Human Services also were held harmless because they were standing up all of the COVID operations. So I could go through what those positions were and the ones that still remain, that were never reinstated if counselors are interested. But those were significant cuts that didn't happen all that long ago. And a lot of those positions are still never been brought back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there questions about this aspect, Councilor Moulton?
Yes, could we get the aggregate number of positions that would be cut for the level services? It was 51 for the strong budget.
A lot of small. It's a lot of percents and also a lot of calculations of cutting hours. So
just a rough estimate of that.
I can give it to you. I'll have to do it. I'll have to do that work.
Anyone else on this one? Okay, were there other questions that we had asked? Yeah, Councilor.
People remember. So.
Not really a question, just a comment about what you told us would happen. I mean, if people's positions are cut, their hours are cut, it might make it so they can't afford to, they have to look for other jobs that they make more money. Also, people will be working short-staffed, which, like Chief Cartledge and Chief Pell talked about last night, they're going to have to get forced call again and do more overtime, potentially, if they're short-staffed, like, if these positions are gone. So, it's not just those positions. It could have more of an effect down the road, too, with people not wanting to work in this different environment.
I mean, certainly there would be more overtime for a lot of positions, and we might have to look at just cutting back hours. And so, keeping offices open less hours too.
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you're right. And we're seeing that right now with the schools, teachers. So yeah, I mean, the schools are very familiar with what you just described.
Any other comments on this? Councilor Rothenberg.
Yeah, I just want to note for the record that the reason I thought that was an opportune time to get some water is that I was confused when this question was raised because I don't think anyone is proposing that. So if it was helpful for whoever asked the question, I'm glad you got the information. I didn't find that was relevant to my budget deliberations since I'm not asking for cuts to other departments.
Any other comments on this? Okay, thank you very much for answering my question. I found it useful to be able to compare because I think, although I'm not asking for cuts either at this point, I do think that would be one of the few ways that we would have in order to raise the school budget. Were there any other answers?
I think we answered most of the other ones within sort of discussion, but if anyone remembers a question they asked that I haven't touched on tonight, please tell me. Like Councilor Mayor, you asked about when Q4 reports, but I think we answered that they'll be available in August, right? Yeah, if anyone else remembers a question, please tell me.
Thank you. Okay, back to counselors for general discussion. Counselor Elkins.
Yeah, I want to address I appreciate that you asked that question, and I thought, and I appreciated understanding the answer. And the reason that I think it was a very much relevant question, and information for us to understand is, and it's been suggested by many people and implicit in many of your arguments, Councilor Rothenberg, but it's been explicitly stated that this is not a zero-sum situation. That is very far from accurate. We are literally in a zero-sum situation. We have a finite amount of revenue, and it's not just finite theoretically, sort of by how much we could possibly raise or how much we could possibly raise taxes, but by a legal, as a matter of law, we can only raise taxes so much because of Prop 2.5. We also have to be realistic about what we can raise in revenue. But there's no way we cut it, that money, in fact, and the revenue that we can generate is not finite. As is, of course, what we have as a result of our municipal fiscal planning that we have in reserves. So, we really do have a choice between spending operationally from the revenue that we have, or if we go into stabilization funds and reserves, that will run out at some point if we spend more revenue than we bring in. So I'm a little at a loss to it's just not accurate to say it is literally a zero sum situation, if where we add, we have to think about where it comes from, and accept that eventually it will run out. I also just want to address, it's lodged at us quite a bit. Austerity is about not taxing to the amount that we legally can. The city has never done that. Well, I don't know if we've never done it, but we have never in many years. We tax up to the very top of the levy that we can legally allow. And then we raise that rate by regular overrides. That hopefully will continue to be the case. So I just want to put it out there that we're not living in a situation where we haven't had mayors for quite a while who operate under the fiscal plan of taxing it less than, and coming and asking councils to pass tax rates that are less than what we can pass. So that's why it's very much a zero sum situation that we maximize to the very most that we can as a community.
Councilor Rothenberg.
So while it's true that the property tax can only grow by that amount, that's not our only source of revenue. And the underlying argument that we have who believe that there's more money available is that, as I mentioned earlier, Director Nardi's forecasts and the forecasts that we would make at what we think is a 90% in Ward 3 is different. We think there is more money. And we think that when that money is left on the table and turns into free cash instead of funding operations, it ends up largely like 11/12 of that free cash in one way or another goes to capital or is available for capital. 1/12 of that goes into the fiscal stability fund. And so we're in this loop where we're using some money from the fiscal stability fund to fund operations. And we're only replenishing it with the tiniest bit of the money that we're leaving on the table that could have been used to fund operations in the first place. So that's the fundamental argument. That's why I don't argue that we should be cutting other departments, because I think we have a fundamental disagreement about the forecast, right? So it's the mayor's forecasting that sets the parameter of what's in here made available to us. And we don't have control over that. So in that sense, yeah, I guess you would have to cut unless you're using your powers of persuasion and analysis. And certainly Ward 3 has tried to do that very hard. Special shout out to Tyler Barnett. We think there's more money. We would like to see a budget that forecasts more money that we can use for operations, leaving less on the table so that less is going to capital in that way. We think you don't need that much cash for capital. We think you can fund capital a variety of ways that we're not fully utilizing. So that's the argument. I hope that clarifies.
Would anyone else like to speak before I go back to Councilor Labarge?
Yes, our finance director, Nardine. I am hearing this a lot from Councilor Rothenberg about we have all this, a large amount of money in the bank. How much money do we have in the bank?
So the city does have, I think we talked about the cash is $153 million in cash, but that includes everything that the city has. That includes trust funds, that includes the revolving funds, that includes all of the stabilization funds. It includes the revenue that we're bringing in today in our $127 million budget. It includes all of that cash. And so it's not just cash that's unmarked. It also includes all of the money that we've already earmarked for capital projects that are in the works. It includes every dollar the city has.
Because residents have talked with me, not just in Ward 6, but in the city, of hearing this, that we have a lot of money. But it was not stated the way you're saying it, where it's coming from. And that's valuable here. When we're saying we got a lot of money in the bank, say, where is it going? Where is it coming from?
Right. And it continually is getting used. That's every dollar the city has in every account.
Thank you. Right.
Anyone else? Okay, go back to Councilor Elkins.
I just want to clarify, Councilor Rothenberg, did I hear you say that the projections that I assume Mr. Barnett came up with, did I hear you say like 1.3 million more?
We think 1.7.
So
just in the revenues. So that doesn't include the overestimated expenditures.
So Director Nardi, can you remind me again what your just the estimated revenue is?
Like that I'm over 90%?
No, where's your current revenue estimate in total dollars?
For FY26?
Yes.
126 million, all my revenue.
Sure.
For the budget for the city.
Sure.
For FY26 is 129 million.
Okay. And so just to clarify, it's being suggested that we that $1.7 million more out of $170 million budget is going to be the difference between us funding the strong school budget and not making cuts.
Well, no, because you also often have.
Was that a question for Councilor Rothenberg? Okay.
You also often have the 1 to 2 million of overestimated expenditures. And also I would love, as Councilor Moulton knows, to see some operational audits. We have a cash capital line. We don't know what's going to happen with those projected personnel reserves. Obviously, there's a lot of places to finesse the budget, but that's a big chunk of that difference between the school. And that what will become free cash, even at the 90%, we argue would bridge the gap to fully fund the schools.
Sorry.
It looks like Director Nardi wanted to respond to that.
So also, I know there has been some talk about, people are saying the offset line, the school choice line should be increased. So I think a lot of what has been thought that could be increased is not under our ability to project it higher. That's a state revenue that comes from the state. The state budget determines what that amount is. So if you take every line in the budget and you take 90%, it would be higher. But we don't actually, you don't want to take every revenue line. It's it's important to know what your revenue is.
It's Councilor Rothenberg.
It's important to know where your revenue is coming from, what's growing, what's not growing, and what you're going to need for future years. So it's not a direct mathematical calculation. You want to be careful of that. You can't just do a direct calculation. You have to know your revenues, how they're coming in, what's growing, what's needed for the next year. All of that is also part of your calculation.
Back to Councilor Elkins. Did you want to finish? Okay. Councilor Rothenberg.
So yes, of course, we're doing that as well. We're doing the look backs. We're comparing GL to NARDI. We're comparing GL to what we would do. I mean, we are doing that. We're looking at local receipts. We're looking at ambulance. We're looking at the same kinds of things you are. I mean, I don't think that we have, I personally don't think that we have a difference of understanding about like the mechanics of this. I think we have a disagreement about how much cash needs to be left over. I mean, nobody is coming out and saying that, but I think we are using a lot of cash to fund capital. I think the policy that we have sets that out. We fund the capital first. We're left with kind of these leftovers for operating. I would love to see this council somehow get to a place where we're really exploring that bigger picture and being smarter about the way we manage our money, because we just cannot afford to have our operations starved this way any longer. We need the roads, we need the schools, we need the sidewalks.
Well, I'll chime in. So I'm also been working with Tyler Barnett and also Brian Wilby and making sure that we get we generated a lot of questions in our meeting, and I'm very grateful to Director Nardi for going over the numerous questions that I and those two have generated. So I'm very much trying to get on the same financial footing, and so that even if we disagree about what things should be estimated, that we come from the same place. And so I look forward. I've invited them to meet again since we've gotten all those questions answered. I look forward to hearing back from them and continuing that, so that, because what Councilor Rothenberg, I mean, I understand the theory of spending less on capital and therefore like permanently spending less on capital and therefore having more for operations. That's perfectly valid. I understand that, but I'm not understanding a lot of the other things you're saying. So I would love to see more of that in a spreadsheet form, in a form where we can really see where the math is. And I look forward to working with folks to receive that information. Is that a direct?
Very short, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you do have good things to look forward in that regard, because we're preparing it for the public as well. We want it to be as simple as possible. And I think we'll have some really beautiful visuals to help soon too. So thank you for your patience.
Councilor Elkins.
And interest.
One thing, and I look forward to this as well. One thing that has happened over this year and last year is that process and that input, if anybody wants to bring it to us, really should coincide more with the calendar that we have to maintain in terms of our budget process. It's not, this isn't a rushed process, and there's in many ways in which the budgeting process happens year round. What starts internally in the departments as they work up their budgets, and then they begin to work with the mayor or work with the superintendent, the school committee, and it never stops. It's much better. I think it's more useful to think of municipal budgeting as an always flowing river. It never stops. There's, we get reports that represent snapshots, and they inform us and they tell us. But it would be very beneficial to those of us who are in the seats and have to take the votes to have more of these processes, if people want to bring them along the same timeline that we bring forward, including when the school committee is voting on their budget. And if people want us to think about, in the city to think about, revenues, we part of the difficulty we've been having is that this is too late. This is too late, and and nobody, whatever differences of opinion we might have about the overall principles and whether or not we spend more on capital or not, that if people wish us to rely or consider numbers or alternative theories, especially to the those that are put forward by our finance directors and school, finance director, that because these are the people who are governed, that they're operating under operation of law and regulations at the state level and under our charter and to some extent by the democratic process, to the extent they're employees of the mayor, and it would be very helpful to in the future to bring those things much earlier in the process, even outside of the budget, if there's, when there's time to look at things and address them more specifically. We're sitting here, and I appreciate, Councilor Jarrett, that you've spoken with people. I've never seen, I haven't seen these numbers. I don't have any access to them. These folks who are working these things up aren't subject to open meeting law or under any obligation to put forward their work to the public. And so if you're going to ask us to rely on it or even consider it, please, it would be great to have that happen under timelines that, correlate to our work.
Thank you. Councilor Clemmer.
Thank you. And I want to add to what Councilor Elkins said too, decades of experience working with municipal budgets and just knowing how they run. And, I'd also like to see Councilor Rothenberg, if you do the spreadsheet, carry it out for 5 years so we could see that the money's not going to run out, because that's been another issue. If the extra $1.7 million is there and it's used for salaries, what's going to happen next year? Is it going to be it would have to be more like, $2 million next year to cover the salaries and increases, and that would have to grow every year. So it'd be interesting to see you cover that.
A direct response?
Go ahead.
Yes, of course, it goes out to show that, of course, modeling goes to show that the model is sound. I would argue that we've been talking about this for a year and a half, and my comment to President Jarrett about what's coming is really just limited to the fact that a beautiful visual is coming, charts, but we've been in the spreadsheets. We've had the spreadsheets in public meetings. So I think we're just continuing and trying to continue to explain and show it in the best way we can so it's understood by as many people as possible. And we will keep doing that.
So I'd like us to consider, since it seems likely, it sounded like there was quite a few folks who are in favor of postponing, that we will have a chance to talk about this again. I would propose that we do one more round and then see if we're ready to close discussion. If anyone would like to speak in that round, let's go ahead. Councilor Moulton.
Yes, I think given the fact that there are at least two councilors who are doing serious work on looking at budgeting numbers with others outside of the mayor's team, that it makes all the sense in the world to postpone a vote tonight. But I'd like to hear concretely from both President Jarrett and from Councilor Rothenberg how they plan to transmit that work that they're doing and the conclusions that they come to the rest of us. When will we get that information?
Yep. I'll speak to that when it's my turn. And anyone else like to talk? Okay, well, I can go then. So yeah, I prepared some remarks assuming that it would get that this would be the last chance to weigh in. So I already thanked Director Nardi and thanked Brian Willoughby and Tyler Barnett. I want to thank Council Maori for our long walks and talks about these issues. And I want to thank Mayor Shara for this budget. As of now, and from what I know now, I believe it's a very well done budget for a very difficult financial situation. And so I've toured recently the 6 Northampton public schools, and I saw so much for us to be proud about. We really have wonderful students and staff and facilities. And I also saw and, of course, heard about the challenges. I would love to see more funding. But again, based on what I know, I believe that what this budget provides is the largest sustainable amount that can be carried forward and without significant cuts to other departments that are further cuts in some cases. So I have also asked the mayor to consider another one-time appropriation to address learning loss, for example, reading and math interventionists. I've heard that the one-time funding we did in March made a big difference. And making an appropriation earlier in the coming fiscal year would allow for more consistency. But first, we would need to know the estimated free cash amount for fiscal year 25. We need to know what federal funding will look like for next year, because if we have to make up $2 million, whatever, that we're going to need to draw not only from free cash, but also from our stabilization funds, and hope that that only lasts a limited amount of time, because we could not sustain making that up. So the timing will be determined by when we would get that information. I know that we do expect our free cash from fiscal year 25 to be larger than in the coming years, because as we talked about tonight, how much we've adjusted our revenue expectations to be so much higher in fiscal 26. And that's why it wouldn't be sustainable to allocate more on a permanent basis. I know that school funding will be a key component of the electoral debates this year, and I believe these debates should be based on solid financials, including reasonable expectations about financial performance. And certainly investing in our schools will yield many dividends besides financial ones. And there is an argument that it will bring in more money to invest now, i.e. fewer students to charter schools. And that needs to be studied with a realistic outlook. If we invest 100,000 more, can we get the number of students back that will make up for that? And it would be great to see if we could see a plan and see what's realistic. What would allow us to be to win those students back? But I will say I don't believe there's any hidden pot of money or extra money. Every dollar is either for use this year for important purposes or set aside for future years, also for important purposes. And we have to carefully plan, or we will end up like it was before the fiscal stability plan, with ups and downs, and we will not have it will not be possible to do the level of increases that we are doing currently. And I think I've already spoke, that I would love to hear the alternatives. What should we cut? How should we plan differently? And as I've offered before, I'll work with anyone to look at alternatives and get every question answered. That doesn't mean we're going to agree when it comes down to it, but we'll have the information. Well, thanks. If you'd like to speak, go ahead. Yes. Councilor Rothenberg.
So I think for the scheduling, really, it would probably make sense for that to be a discussion that happens with President Jarrett after we adjourn. I don't think that I can make representations for a team of people or any particular person as to what can or should be presented when. I understand the short timeline that we're on, and I'm sure they'll be able to accommodate, but I think as far as pinning that down, that should be established with President Jarrett and Tyler probably.
So I can say, for me to answer your question is that I don't have an alternative but I'm willing to look at them and consider them. So I don't have something to present to you. I have, my version of the fiscal stability plan and the different numbers that I've plugged in, but those are consistent with what Director Nardi and the mayor have provided. Certainly, if I do come up with something that I feel is an alternative, I would be happy to bring that to the next meeting. And of course, members of the public are welcome to share, as Councilor Elkins requested, welcome to share at any time. So I hope that helps. I'm happy to schedule meetings with members of the public. I'm not, open meeting law may limit me from scheduling
Right.
meetings directly.
And I don't want to volunteer anybody to give a special meeting, without having a chance to talk to them. I just think there's probably some options that could be explored after tonight, and we'll have a better sense of that. Just like we would if you had to schedule legislative matters or finance or anything. It just needs to be a quick chat with some key people.
Councilor Elkins and then Councilor Labarge.
I want to be clear. I'm happy to have Council Rothenberg or anybody who wants to bring forward something that is influencing their thinking that they wish for us to consider. I do not think that I would object to a presentation. I don't think we need a special meeting, and I don't think we need to carve out time from the next scheduled meeting for anything like that. The way things, information from departments and from the mayor and from the finance director, comes to us in, emails and other materials and things that can be, posted. But to be very clear, I am not suggesting that we do a presentation of an alternate theory of municipal finance.
However, I will remind councilors that if you would like anything to be added to the agenda of an upcoming meeting, including any materials, any financial spreadsheets, anything that will be discussed at the meeting, that is very permissible, and that is a great way to get information out to all councilors. You can't discuss it before the meeting, but you can send it out and send it to Laura, and we'll make sure it gets on there, and then we can have a robust discussion at our next meeting. Councilor Labarge.
She said some of it that I was going to.
Your microphone.
I said she talked about something that I was going to bring out also, but I also just want to remind counselors here that it's something to me that's very important. There was an article in the Gazette April 15th about, and a resident of mine is very knowledgeable about this also. He also has been involved in 2 school committees. And he's right about that article that's in the Gazette. And I highly suggest counselors to look at the April 15th Gazette meeting about Amherst, how they are making a decision because of the schools being in the same predicament we are, of forming a committee of 5 to possibly 7 to 10 people and look at the overall, because we're hearing about our budget, and the school budget here. What the problem is, the school budget is the highest budget in our city here. And I think it's a right way to go. Just look at that article if you can, of what they're planning on to do in Amherst is going a 5 to 7 or 10 member of looking at their schools, of what should they do here. Are you going to downsize? What's going to happen here? And I think this is a right way to go here in our city. We need to look, what are we going to do with our schools? Prop 2.5, we're hearing that. Councilor Clemmer had mentioned, which she's hearing the same thing I am. People cannot afford it. They cannot continuously keep avoiding this. Then what are we going to do here? We need to make a heavy decision. Please read that article for April 15th. I do have a resident in Ward 6 who is very willing if they decide to do that. And I would talk with the mayor about the resident and so forth and let them make a decision on it. I think it's the right way to go. Between school committee and what they do with it, how they're going to, make changes in their departments, all size, downsize, what schools, whatever. We have to change because it's just not working, even with the Prop 2.5s. Look what's happened here. Got hit with the COVID. So there's got to be some drastic changes, and we can't continue on blaming all of us here, with even people being upset with the schools right down the line. Get down to the nitty gritty. Let's start working together and make some movement.
Thank you. In this round, there are 4 counselors who haven't. I don't have listed here. Would you like to share?
That's it, right?
Okay. Well then, I would propose that we close this divided motion. And if I have the consent of everyone, we will simply not vote on the motion to approve. The motion was to adopt the general fund budget minus the central services parking maintenance budget. So we will not vote on it with your consent. And then I will recuse, and you can discuss the next portion and then decide what to do about the budget as a whole. Okay. So we are not voting on that. And let me just get everything together. Over to Vice President.
So now,
God bless you.
bless you. We can deliberate and vote on adopting the central services parking maintenance budget. Or we can consent to not vote on adoption, like we just did, of this portion. Is that the right motion?
To not vote on
Either one? Okay, so we don't have to do that specifically for the central. So we're moving on to the motion to approve? No. What do you?
Either as a group or singly or.
Yeah. But how? Okay, let me just. Or we can put a motion to postpone before we do so. That's what I discussed it earlier with the president. My impression was that we would that if someone wanted to make a motion to postpone, that would be the time. But you're saying, do we have, are you saying that we have to put it on the?
No, you're right.
Oh.
Start talking about the budget orders,
Right. So I guess, right. So I guess what I'm saying is if we want to entertain the idea of postponing, would be the time. Yeah.
So then I will make a motion to postpone to our next scheduled meeting.
I second that.
Okay. Motion. Oh, is
just 25,253 for all 6 budget orders.
Let's see. Would you like to do a friendly amendment? No. Would you?
I make them to take them all as to postpone them all.
So a motion to postpone by Councilor Pear. Is that a point of order?
It just, I guess it is a point of order, except for that by putting them together, then Counselor Jarrett can't vote on what he can vote on. You know what I mean? So, maybe to keep what he can't vote on to delay.
Good call. Yeah.
And then he can come back and we can do it again.
Right. Good call.
I will make a friendly amendment to separate what we can vote on here or to postpone.
Just separate it and then we vote. And
so motion to postpone.
Would just be for 25,253.
Exactly. Yep.
Solid waste enterprise.
Yes. Yes. And then we can have President Chair come. Okay. And the second was Councilor Labarge. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or noes? Okay, so that passes. So I believe Hi.
That was quick.
Welcome back. Labarge. So, yeah. Good call. No, we didn't. That's what we just did.
Yes.
Yeah, we did them together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Because Counselor Elkins caught that. Yes.
We postponed everything you can't do that you couldn't vote on. So now I would move to postpone everything else.
Look at that.
I second that one too.
Motion made by Counselor Elkins and seconded by Counselor Dubs to postpone 25.254 sewer enterprise, 25.255 water enterprise, 25.257 stormwater and flood control enterprise, and 25.258 revolving funds. Any discussion on postponement to our June 18th meeting? Okay. They were not put on the floor. It was not put on the floor for approval, right? It was just postponed. So that makes them vulnerable to a charter objection on June 18th.
Right.
But we have a commitment to not, that there's no interest in that. So
Yep.
if everyone's fine with that, we can just move forward. Okay. All in favor of postponing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Those will be taken up on our June 18th meeting. How's everyone doing? Do we need a recess? Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll come back at in 10 minutes, 8:58.
Oh, yeah. Wait, am I putting the old middle here?
Zach, are you ready for a countdown?
No, it's what? Well, we have to remove the. Wait. Oh. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Northampton City Council. And we're back up to financial orders on first reading. And with the council's permission, given that there's city staff here to address items E and F, I'd like to move down to those orders. If they're amenable to take those first. Okay, we'll start with 25.275. In order to accept Mass General Law Clause 22I and 22J to allow annual increase in veterans exemption. So this is in first reading, and we have Principal Assessor Mark Dotrell here. And I don't know who would like to begin the present.
I'll just start quickly because Director Nardi also has a quick presentation. But you will see in the presentation that actually I'm going to ask the council to amend this order that you have in front of you to increase the 22J section to 25% from 10%. We went through the numbers again, and I think we can make the combination of a 25% increase and the 22I, which is tied to CPI, so that is an annual increase that will happen tied to a CPI. Be sustainable if we do that combination of those two. So I'm going to ask you all to amend that if you're willing to go up to 25%. So you're going to see the 25% in the presentation. So that's why I'm giving you this preamble.
Thanks for the heads up.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to share first. All right. My apologies. Good evening, everyone. I had some technical difficulties. So let me start. So Principal Assessor Mark Dotrell and I met to discuss the HERO Act. This is an act that was approved by Governor Healy on August 8th, 2024. The HERO Act is the honoring and empowering and recognizing our service members and veterans. As part of that HERO Act, there was 2 new clauses added, 22I and 22J under Chapter 59, Section 5, which is the statute that establishes local property tax exemptions for individuals and organizations. These new clauses do not change the eligibility requirements set by the state. That is not something we set. It's set by the state, and it doesn't change those. Basically, what the implementation of Clause 22I and 22J, they're local options that must be accepted by the city or town to apply, to be able to apply in the city. Acceptance requires a vote of the city council. The impact of 22, basically what these 2 clauses do is they allow us to increase exemptions under Clause 22 through 22F. 22I is an annual increase by cost of living COLA determined by the Department of Revenue based on the Consumer Price Index. If we just asked you to vote 22I, or what 22I proposes to do, is to increase by the COLA, which this year in FY25 is 2.9%. So currently you'll see the veterans exemptions, 22 through 22E. We did not list 22F because it is 100% already. So if you look in the second column, you'll see the amount of the exemptions and what the CPI will increase it to in FY 2026. The impact of 22J if accepted, provides an additional exemption up to 100% of the amount of the tax exemption granted to veterans in those same categories or under those same clauses. And if we were just to do 22J, set at 25%, which the mayor wants to increase it to, you'll see from the current for 22, it's 400 and it goes up to 500. The FY26 exemption amount with approval would increase for, we're asking for both. So it would be a CPI increase of 2.9% with the additional 25%. So as you can see, the exemption for $400 goes up to $515 for FY29. Excuse me, FY26, which is a 29% increase. And you can see all the increases for the other exemptions. Looking over a 20-year period using an average COLA of 3%, and that varies. Last year, I believe it was 3.2%. A couple 3 to 4 years ago, it was about 6%, 6.1%. So it varies, the COLA. But we figured we'd do an average of 3% to show the growth. And over 20 years, it's 129% increase. And you can see the amounts it goes up by. Originally in FY25, $400, it goes up to $915. And if you drop to the lower, each one, $1,000. And for 22E, it goes up to $2,288. I believe that's what that says. And I can't see it on my screen. And the next screen just shows you in pretty colors what that actually looks like as it increases over 20 years. And then the number of veterans that Principal Assessor Dotrel has authorized under Chapter 59, Section 5 for FY25 are exemptions for 120 veterans. And you can see the numbers for each of the clauses. We do not have Clause 22B, any folks that are under that clause. And so the recommendation by the mayor is to accept 22I, so it increases annually by the CPI, and to accept 22J, so it gives the additional 25% exemption. And the goal of the mayor was, I will be honest, when Principal Assessor and Dotrel met, we talked about just doing 22J, and the mayor felt it was really important that if we're not looking at this, that it continues to grow over time as assessments grow. And that is it.
Could you talk about 22F? I was a little confused by that. It said it's already 100%.
Yes, please.
So the 22F exemption. So, oh, sorry. Thanks. The 22F exemption grants a taxpayer complete exempt status. They no longer have to pay taxes. So these two, the 22I and 22J, are moot points.
I see. And what is 22F for?
One of the, I'm sorry, I have it right here in front of me. It's gone by me. Paraplegia or blindness from service-related injuries.
And in order to qualify for any of these, does this go to any veteran, or is there other stipulations?
This goes to solely service veterans with service-related injuries and service-related disabilities, or their widows.
Or widowers.
Or widower, yes, or widowers, correct, yes. Anything else?
Councilor Labarge.
Yes, I had Carl Mark's office in regards to this order here. My husband was in the beginning of the Vietnam War. He can't get anything, period. It doesn't say anything on here about people with disabilities, and why isn't it saying that? It's very confusing for people to read this and not knowing the facts here.
I'm not sure what you're looking at. I'm sorry.
The order.
The order.
The language in here, because you told me yourself, Mark, that it was really an interesting order here of there's more added on to it. That's what you told me the other day on the phone.
Yes.
right?
Well, the 22I and the 22J exemptions add on to the current exemptions. So the 22I and 22J allow you and the council to vote to add to the current exemptions.
For us to add?
So,
Yeah, sorry, did you want to say?
yeah, so just to be clear, so the exemptions that this order allows us to increase existing 22 through 22E exemptions for disabled veterans or their widows or widowers.
Okay, thank you.
So, and you're right, I should have put that in the order what the 22A through 22E is actually for. I apologize, I did not do that.
Not your fault.
Exists, exactly.
Right. But it's important, Mayor, because I have a lot of people on my ward that have served our country. And throughout.
Now they still,
That language is important.
Yeah.
So I apologize.
Already qualify for a veteran exemption, they'll still qualify. Unfortunately, if they don't qualify currently, they still would not qualify.
Language is important.
You're right.
Thank you.
Could we have just a brief overview of what the exemptions are? Just like a sentence about each. 22.
Yeah, so
That we have veterans that qualify for, or all of them?
All of them, because if those veterans moved here, they would qualify, right?
You just want a description of each one, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Great.
the Veterans Clause 22, it's service-connected disability of 10 to 99%, or surviving spouse, Gold Star parents, Purple Heart recipients. Veterans Clause 22A, service-connected loss of 1 foot, 1 hand, or 1 eye, or their surviving spouse, prisoner of war, recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, Navy Cross, or Air Force Cross. That one is $750. I'm sorry, the first one I stated, the Veteran Clause 22, is a $400 exemption currently. The 22A is $750. The Clause 22B, which is $1,250, is service-connected loss of both feet, both hands, or both eyes. Veterans Clause 22C, which is $1,500, service-connected disability of 100% with specially adapted housing. Veterans Clause 22D, surviving spouse of vet who is missing in action or presumed dead, or who died as an approximate result of injuries or illnesses contracted during active duty. Veterans Clause 22E, I'm sorry, the 22D is a full exemption as well, just like a 22F. The Veteran Clause 22E is $1,000. It's service-connected disability of 100% without the specially adapted housing. Veterans Clause 22F is a full exemption. Veterans with 100% service-connected paraplegia or blindness. And that is it.
Okay, thank you for that.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And that could you explain the overlay and how that these amounts, is that how these amounts will be accounted for?
Correct.
Yes, so the overlay that we vote, it's actually in the budget, or it's not voted, it's in the budget as an expense, covers any abatements that are done or exemptions that are given. So this recommendation falls within the overlay as it stands in the budget book.
Thank you. Questions, Councilor Moulton, then Mayory.
Yes, so thank you. So I believe the mayor said that that Mark, you had certified 120 veterans in FY25.
Correct.
Exemptions.
Correct.
And those veterans are automatically carried over.
No, you have to apply every single year. By state law, any exemption, whether it's a veteran exemption, blind exemption, senior exemption, you have to apply every year.
And is there some reminder that is sent to?
We are one of the few cities in the entire state that actually mail out applications to folks who have already been in our system.
I think that's great.
And you can thank Joan Seraphin for that. So former assessor before me. So.
Yes, well, that's great. So they will get the reminder and perhaps information about this extension of the benefits.
Yeah, a lot of them already know. I've spoken with a few, and I can talked to Steve Connor at Veteran Services to make sure he might have already told folks about this, because I've spoken with a couple dozen veterans over the last year and a half about the HERO Act.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that there is that outreach with the information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Mary.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to thank the mayor for maximizing this. I think it's really important, especially in light of some disparaging federal lack of support for our veterans. And I'm not sure if PTSD is on that list, or maybe that's a general one with.
I don't know. That's something that's decided. All of these are decided by the VA.
Yeah.
So.
And I just think with the close combat wars like the Gulf War, especially head trauma and mental health, ensuing mental health issues would definitely be something that should be exempted. But so thanks for making it easy for them, by sending it out, and also for maximizing it.
Any other questions? So this is a financial order. We can either refer it to finance or to the consent agenda of our next meeting.
Move consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Perry. Discussion on referral to the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstention? Okay, that will appear. Thank you. Next is 25.276, an order authorizing a 5-year contract for new phone platform. It's in first reading, and do we have Director Ottaviani?
Yes, I believe he is on to talk about this. And so, we're looking to change vendors for our phone system for multiple reasons, and he'll be happy to talk about that.
Okay.
And a 5-year contract with the new vendor gives us a significant price advantage of a transition year at no cost if we do 5 years. So that's why we're bringing this forward. Did you find him?
I don't see him.
Oh, there he is. He's right there.
Yes.
Sorry, Luigi.
Welcome, Director.
Thank you. So yeah, the IT service department would like to pursue the purchase of a telephony platform to replace the current one. We have been having significant issue with the current platform that limits our work and what we can do with the city. We did pretty much an extensive research on alternatives, which included a newer version of the current platform, another very famous market vendors, and then found that the platform provided by Zoom would be extremely valuable. We were able to confirm that there would be no additional cost to move into this application. And the vendor offered us a full year no cost in case we proceed with a 3 or more years contract. That opportunity is excellent because allow us to migrate the platform slowly and gradually, one department at a time, with no disruption. And so we believe that will bring a really fantastic situation for that upgrade. In addition, we are also able to secure no additional cost for the whole 5 years of contract, which is significant savings if we consider that IT platform usually grow about 3 to 5% every year. Talking about the advantage of this new platform, which will be fully cloud, will be increased resiliency. Right now, our current application use servers and appliances sparse across the city is very dependent on our internal network, but also on other aspects. It will bring increased mobility. So we'll able to have our office phone available as an app on every phone, including mobile phone or even computer, almost any device. Right now, it's pretty convoluted and problematic when staff members start working from home, and this applies to a lot of departments like DHHS, DPW, for example, the snow desk, and all this kind, and even the schools actually are significantly impacted by that. Additional feature that the platform that we are proposing will bring is advanced call management. So how to direct in an intelligent way the calls. This is something that the city or some department of the city pay as a separate services. Another big important part is the current solution relies on MSP to be managed and configured. So we pay a third-party company that configure the application for us, and there's really no way around it. This increased the cost. So every time something needs to happen, we need to contact them. They will bill us, and also adds time every time we need to do some configuration that is not extremely simple. The new platform will be a lot simpler to manage, and that will have a direct benefit on saving staff time, and their support is actually excellent. An additional fantastic characteristic of this platform that is compatible with the current phone that we have. So we will not have to change phones. The investment that the city did a few years back on buying all new phones, so the fancy one that we have here and everywhere in the school, even the Smith Block, will be fully compatible. So there will be no pretty much capital investment in this. Another aspect that I think is extremely important is the current platform doesn't have good auditing capabilities, which is a pretty big concern. The new platform have fantastic audit capabilities. So if someone will need to know all the calls in and out for specific numbers and so on, and even actually to a level of detail that is incredible. So it could be the phone rang 3 times, the person didn't pick it up for 15 seconds, something like that, which is really, really good. There are more opportunity with this platform. For example, E911, which is an incredibly complex thing to do, and we are finishing up with the current platform. A project that took pretty much 3 years can be managed almost automatically by the platform. The platform is smart enough to recognize where the phone is, where the person is. So, for example, the office phone will be able to know, oh, I'm on the network on this building, so this is the location in case a 911 call needs to happen. If someone is at home on their computer, let's say the application will ask the user, where are you? And will not allow them to log in until they specify this. So E911 is definitely covered. There are other future things that will happen with this application. One is an e-fax solution. In the city, we still have significant number of old fax machines. They are linked to copper line, they're failing, and this is actually a big problem on the school side. The platform will add also e-fax opportunities. So a lot of benefit at the same cost. So really nothing that we can see that would be detrimental in this change.
Right. Thank you. And the reason this is coming before us is because they're asking for a 5-year contract, and any contract longer than 3 years has to be approved by the city council. Councilor Elkins, then Rothenberg.
I'm always afraid whenever whenever Luigi presents that we're going to lose him to the sales departments of the of the places. He knows the features and the relative comparison so well. So it's a no-brainer. Is there any particular reason that a speedier approval would be beneficial to be able to get in the contract, or is the next meeting fine?
Well, we were able to deal with the vendor to get that 1 year free if we are able to start the agreement by the end of this month. That is the promotion that they can offer.
Okay, so the end of the month, but not sooner necessarily. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Hey, Luigi, this is Quaverly. I just wanted to say hi. I'm always so happy when you come. I love the way you info dump. I love the way you do your work with so much integrity, and always learn a lot from you. Thank you for doing such a good job all the time.
Thank you.
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, good evening, Director. So what is the company that this contract would be with?
This would be with Zoom.
Oh,
the one-
Zoom. I missed that.
Zoom, yes.
Zoom. So it's also, it does a wide range. Zoom does a wide range.
Yes, in this case, they call it Zoom phones.
Yeah.
And it's specific for telephony. Yep.
Got it. Okay. We all should have invested in Zoom 10 years ago. Thank you.
Any other Counselor Elkins?
Oh, I was going to move consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Elkins and seconded by Counselor Perry to refer this to the consent agenda of our next meeting. Further discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you, Director.
Director.
Thank you.
So we'll move back up to item A, 25.271, in order to approve an exemption for Daniel Graham contract for personnel services. Mayor Shara?
Yes. So you may remember this from last year. This is a state required exemption for a teacher named Daniel Graham to serve again as the Camp HAMP director for the summer. So this is a process we need to go through to vote on that exemption so he can do both those roles. And we're requesting 2 readings for this because camp's coming.
Counselor Elkins. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was going to move for suspension of rules to allow 2 readings.
I'll second that.
Okay, if that's, unless you wanted to speak first. Okay. It's a motion made by Counselor Moulton and seconded by Counselor Labarge to suspend rules to allow us to vote tonight. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimous and we can vote tonight. Counselor Elkins.
I actually thought about mentioning this during announcements, but then I saw this was on the agenda. And so I'm just going to take this opportunity to tell everybody that Mr. Graham was and there were several teachers and staff and parent chaperones, but he was sort of the lead organizer that took 3 bus loads of 8th graders last weekend to Washington, D.C., and saw them safely there and safely back. And it was a great trip. And we should do more for him. I actually heard that the bus company sent. I'm going to go off a little bit. I'm sorry. Call me out of order if you want. The bus company sent the wrong bus. And so there were 2 seats short, and so several staff people. I don't think Mr. Graham though, because he recently had a terrible ski accident. Rode the aisle in the bus until they could meet the appropriate size bus in New Jersey. So it was definitely above and beyond. And kudos to everyone who was involved with that trip. The kids had a great amount of fun, and not that it's contingent on this, but I definitely think I would move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Elkins, seconded by Counselor Clemmer. Further discussion?
Good story.
This is a financial order, so roll call, please.
All right.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Clemmer,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Rothenberg,
Yes.
and Counselor Dobbs.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. 25.272, in order to accept $10,000 DA Sullivan gift and use $12,045 in gifted funds for Bridge Art Project.
I'm going to pass this over to. Right?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah, you actually, Council President Jarrett asked for some pictures, so I got some of those. So, and why don't I just summarize quickly, and then we'll do the pictures. I don't think you want me to read this entire thing. What's notable about this, I just want to say first and foremost that this $10,000 gift that we are asking that we are receiving and then asking to appropriate is now takes us to $100,000 that D.A. Sullivan and Sons have given to the city of Northampton since they began doing $10,000 a year. So this is the 10th year that they've done it. So we are incredibly grateful. And I put in the order a record and a history of all the things that they have done, which have profoundly impacted. And they have wanted to do with minimal fanfare projects that greatly help downtown or something in and out quickly that the city can just do. And I think if you look at this, yes, you are. And so, yeah, so that's right. What year was that? I'm going to look really quickly. Oh, in 2016, the very first one refurbished the city council desks that we are all sitting at right now. So we're just eternally grateful. And I think when we realize this project this year, hopefully, we should probably plan to do something, and we'll work on that in the economic development department. But I'm truly grateful to the D.A. Sullivan family. This project has come out of a lot of comment on the state of the middle bridge of the three bridges that go over Main Street. So if we're heading towards Amherst, the first bridge is the bike path. The second bridge is actually the Amtrak MassDOT bridge. And then the third bridge is the buffer bridge or the target bridge. It's the bridge that they have left there because so many trucks hit it, and that you can see is in kind of rough shape. But it has a mural on it that's attractive from the westbound direction, and the bike bridge has an art installation on it heading from the east. But you can see the middle bridge, and I'm going to show you really well from lots of perspectives, and it is in sad shape, and it has been a target of graffiti. And it is, I have learned from MassDOT, cost prohibitive to paint. We started with an effort from some Ward 3 residents who really wanted this cleaned up, and some of the businesses over in the Paradise East neighborhood who wanted to have a more attractive entrance to their part of the city. And the number that I won't repeat the number I got, but it was 7 figures. And whether or not that's a true number from the MassDOT guy, there's a lot of remediation required. There's probably almost certainly lead paint on that bridge. And we would have to block Main Street for some amount of time. You've probably seen over 91 when they paint a bridge, it's kind of a major operation. And they did not indicate a lot of will for this bridge as being high on their priority list. So Carolyn Mish, Brian Foote, and I and others brainstormed what we might do, and we came up with the idea to put what we got a bid for as a beam clamp and unistrut subframe with 6-inch deep aluminum extrusion cabinets, basically putting up a platform on which that we could put public art projects. So it's probably not a billboard, but if you imagine that a billboard is something that is changeable with some frequency, and we would obviously have to fundraise for each of these public art installations, but it's something that could change over time, not like the existing installations, which are sort of permanent. And so the idea is to put up this structure. MassDOT has said they would let us do this. It would cover the yucky parts of this bridge with some kind of cool art that we would have our typical Brian Foote-led public art process input to choose. And this grant, the sort of estimate we got, but we would have to procure it because this is more than $10,000, was in the $15,000 range. So the D.A. Sullivan gift plus what was left over from last year, which was 2,000 and change, that gets us to this, $12,045.16, would get us pretty far along to putting up the actual structure. And we have 2 anonymous donors who actually started this process by saying, please, let's clean this up, that have offered to make donations. So the goal here would be to not have any or absolutely minimal city money in this. And I'll say for now, like 100% donated is the goal. If there was like $1,000, the money that you all afforded me in my economic development budget, I would finish it with. But like, the goal here is, and we believe we have the support to do this project. So that is the idea. And I don't know if you want to see the bridge pictures here. You all walk by it every day. So this was me risking life and limb in the crosswalk in front of Fitzwillies. And you can really see it. So that first bridge with the train aluminum is the bike path bridge, but that sort of white mess underneath that attracts a lot of graffiti is the Amtrak bridge. And so then the next one is, here we are much closer, standing by Moshi Moshi, and you can see that this could be a lot prettier. You know, we've lit these bridges, and we just continue to try and clean up this section of town. And then the next one, even nearer, now I am near. And then if the last one, now I am far. And so that's all the way. You can really see it even as far away as Pleasant and Maine. So
Can't you do your Grover impression?
The mayor dared me to do it. Now I am far. Okay, there you go. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I remember when I first moved here, this bridge had been recently painted for the movie Malice, and it said Boston and Maine. Even though it wasn't the Boston and Maine Railroad, they wanted to do that. But that's since faded. Okay. Questions? Councilor Rothenberg.
Sorry, it's just, I guess not a question. I just thought it was a nice opportunity and moment to give a shout out to our little Paradise East businesses. I'm glad we're doing something nice for them and that they want this. And there are so many who do a good job. And especially, of course, always right now, this time of year, Isaac and Deb are doing so much for us. And Splendor Solace is doing so much and so many events. And we'll have our little market pop up on Market soon. So thank you for investing in this area of town. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you,
Councilor Perry.
Sort of the same thing. I have been working on and milling about projects or things to utilize that bridge since the Vibrancy Project. And I've actually had a meeting recently with the new DNA director, Andrea Munson, about things to do with it. And knowing that there is a place to put art makes this idea I've had for years that much closer. I don't want to, jump the gun, but you guys will be excited when it comes to fruition, and it's going to be great. And I want to thank all of you for collaborating to make this happen. I think it's great to see a bunch of different departments doing something that really affects so many people and welcomes folks into our city.
Councilor Mary.
Yeah, now I'm hungry for Moshi Moshi and also that new deli. If a truck hits it, it won't take out the art.
Don't need to be hit from that direction.
That direction, okay.
You have to take the entire bike path.
Are you?
Yeah.
Is your mic on?
So like the truck would have to profoundly hit it from that direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, there's never any kind of stipulation about what kind of art. They just you kind of just get.
Well, and that's why I said Brian Foote had the Arts and Culture Department has a process by which people can apply.
Right. But DA Sullivan doesn't, they just put that in the city's hand. That's great. Yeah.
One of the things they sponsored was the raccoons, and we showed it to them, and he was like, "Great, that looks great." I think he was happy that we reduced it to one raccoon, if you'll recall. But they have just generally been super. And he said, when we talked about this, are you sure you can see the bridge? And I said, go take a look. And he's like, yep, you can. So he's all on board.
And what was that bridge then? It wasn't a footbridge. I'm trying to think.
It's the one that
track.
It's the actual train.
Low one is Amtrak.
That is.
Oh, okay.
Goes,
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Moulton.
I agree. Great project. I do think it would be a nice gesture to recognize the milestone for DA Sullivan. And I know that they have preferred to sort of fly under the radar, but I think that 100,000 over the decade is worthy of some sort of public recognition.
I agree. We're sort of teasing it here tonight, but I think my thinking is when this thing goes up and there's some sort of, here it is, that we would do that.
Right.
Councillor Labarge. Oh, your microphone.
And plus, my son knows he graduated with Sullivan's wife, and they are so caring, that family. Very, very caring. And I can't say how we appreciate everything that they have done, our desk right down the line. If possibly, what would be nice is once they install what they have to for that bridge, is to have like a celebration with the family there in the business, and also a plaque with his name on. This is, I mean, you're looking at $10,000 a year, $100,000. They care about our community, and I think we need to give back.
So what I can pledge to do is once we get there and we come up with a plan, we can share it with you all and see if you guys agree that it's a good idea.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Elkins.
So with enormous gratitude and little fanfare, I would move this consent to go to the consent agenda.
Second that.
Okay, motion made by Councillor Elkins and seconded by Councillor Perry. Go to the consent agenda of our next meeting. I have a question. I really appreciate all of these gifts. Do we, how do we make sure that after we've, installed these, that they are maintained? Like an example would be the Pulaski Park water fountain, which is currently out of order. How do we make sure that we have the resources to maintain them?
So I thought you might bring that up. That water fountain is a very complex structure, and I think we've talked about this before. It has broken on numerous occasions. We actually believe that I know you asked this question, and I'm trying to get you an answer in email. We believe that there is a water line leak to it, that we're actually seeing chlorinated water in the basement of Memorial Hall at the moment, which tends to make us think that there's a drinking water line leaking somewhere, and it's probably that fountain. And so it may require backhoe. But I mean, it has survived how many years since the water fountain? Since 2018. So we have maintained that a bunch of times. I mean, in my time with the city, that water fountain has broken. This is probably the third time. And so each time in the past, we have found a way to fix it and maintain it. So I think it goes right into all of our preventative and capital repair, maintenance, any of these things. And I think one of the beauties of this installation is, if it were to be damaged, that they're semi-temporary enough that the idea of fundraising for something new to go over something that got damaged would not be so prohibitive that it would take a long, long time. So that in this case, there is a bit of ephemera built into this art.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Exciting. For Councillor Elkins for the vote. All in favor of referral to the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye. Wait, the financial.
We're just referring.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
It's only approved. Do a roll call.
Right.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that will appear financial order of our next meeting. Thank you, Chief of Staff Wolf.
Thank you. Yeah.
Next is 25.273, in order to increase the fiscal year 2026 budget by $12,549 from free cash to appropriate to contributory retirement. Director Knight.
So the explanation for this is I set this budget amount based on a percentage, and then when the actual amount came in, I did not update it. So my apologies for that. I am $12,000 short in contributory retirement.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Maori.
Would this be something you'd want 2 readings on? It's not on the agenda. Huh?
It's part of the 2026 budget.
Oh, so right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it would make sense to approve it after the budget is voted
You want it built into the budget.
So maybe
Yeah, so at the same time.
at the
Yeah.
same time. Okay.
Yeah.
And if the budget doesn't pass, would this have to then be
This needs to be voted in order to increase that budget.
right? But what if the budget the
So maybe we could postpone voting on it and vote on it July 10th?
we're doing.
that's what we would have to do if the budget didn't pass.
I don't know if we would have to, but that makes sense to me. If the budget,
But if you, I mean,
What if we approve it now?
and then it's incorporated into the budget, then it would just be enacted on July 1st.
right. I think it's fine if you vote it on, if you decided to put it on the consent agenda and it was voted on the 18th. I agree with the mayor. I think it'll be fine if it's voted.
Okay.
Because it's just adding to whatever budget happens to be.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to refer?
Move to refer consent.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Elkins, seconded by Councilor Moulton. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. It'll be on the consent agenda of our next meeting. And now, 25.274, an order to authorize payment of prior year bill.
Ooh. So yes, this is $140 to Kurt Lilick. He is an alternate electrical inspector. He covered Memorial Day in 2024 and didn't give us a bill until recently.
Yeah.
So it's $35 a day for the 4 days for coverage.
Councilor Elkins.
And I know it wasn't requested, but Bella's waited a long time. I would move to suspend the rules. Why don't we, if we can kind of.
Okay. Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Maori to suspend the rules so that we may vote tonight. Any discussion?
And Bill, if you're listening, no big deal. Sometimes I put in a bill for 2023 today. You run small businesses, you lose track sometimes. Thank you for submitting it. Thank you for helping.
Okay, all in favor for suspension of the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Rules are now suspended.
Okay. Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Perry to approve. Any discussion on approval? Roll call, please.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Clemmer,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori.
Yes.
Councillor Moulton.
Yes.
Councillor Perry.
Yes.
Councillor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councillor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Any new business? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Perry and seconded by Councilor Clemmer to adjourn.
Yes.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed and abstentions? Okay, we are adjourned. See you in 13 days.
Well, thank you. If we have a bunch of meetings before.